6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face. Blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
Such sights to show you. We'll tear your soul apart.
Glass.
Woo! Welcome to Death Curse Society, ladies and gentlemen. Not quite sure who all's out there right now because this is the members only little exclusive thing that we're doing just for you guys for helping us out with the Death Curse Society and supporting it. I'm Red Crank, I got Zigzag, and I got the Colonel. What's up, gentlemen?
Not much. I do not remember filming that.
Yeah.
Come up for a beer. I just remember the shitter. That's all I remember.
I don't remember that one either. I saw it like kind of out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, "Wait, what was that?" I have to look at that again because that was one I may have uploaded the wrong one. It looks like I did, but still work.
I'm not bitching. I'm just like, whoa, I don't remember that at all.
Very nice, Ziggy. How's your day?
Yeah, pretty good, man. Not too bad. It's hotter than shit here in Michigan. Like 95 and balmy. The 4th was dripping. You know what I mean? We're out there with the fireworks and everything. It was just horrible. Thank God, these are the days you can have a pool and got that late night dip in. All good, man. Happy 4th of July, everybody.
That's right. Happy 4th of July to everyone. I hope you guys celebrated safely. Sounds like one of our fans had to go to the ER with somebody. Hopefully they're okay, their brother or whatever. God damn it, Brucey, what's wrong with you? I know you're not in here, but damn it, Brucey. You'll see this later. Let me make sure to thank all of our fans that hopefully are going to be joining us throughout the night. We've got our final girls, Chris and Lorena, Christy, Luke, and Tyrone. Let us know in the comments that you're in here. We've got our Crazy Ralphs, Angelo, and Peter. And then, of course, our camp counselors, S. Michael and Dave. Thank you, folks, for helping us out. And without further ado, I think let's go ahead and bring the man in and get this show on the road. Ladies and gentlemen, the writer and director of the Never Hike Alone series, producer, star, all-around sexy guy, Mr. Vincent DiSanti. How are we doing, sir?
What an intro. Nice. Thanks, guys. How you doing? Happy Independence Day.
Yep.
Thank you. Same to you, sir.
Yes.
Well, I guess day after, but hey, it's still this is the observed holiday, right? So
Right. This is the federal observed holiday, so it counts.
Great. That's cool.
Yeah. Now, you just got back from Portland, I think you said. Hope the flight was good. Didn't have any delays in any airports or anything like that. It doesn't look like so.
No, it was kind of up and down. I was coming back from Portland, working with the Jason Rising guys. I had a connecting flight through Salt Lake, so that was I had a 2.5-hour layover, but I made some phone calls. Always working. So I had some really great meetings with people in between, and just got back into LA. Kind of just took a rest, started doing some camper packs for the Never Hike in the Snow Blu-ray fulfillments, and been waiting to hang out with you guys and watch the Ghost Cut.
Woo! Yeah. I see a bunch of boxes in the background and different things, maybe Blu-rays and such.
Yep, I'm sitting right next. I got a stack of posters right on the side of me. Put it right side up. And then I got the pins down over here, which are pretty cool. So I got like a nice little rigged up system here, so I can here you can kind of see that one of the ones.
Oh yeah,
I did that.
But it's the retro
Nice.
kind. So I just got like a little system. I mean, we've been doing so many of these, so it's just sit and assemble. You know what I mean? So so I'm doing that today, and then tomorrow I take off. I'm going to be doing some time working on American Horror Stories. I got a job for the production crew up there, so they're actually shooting out of town. I don't think I can say what they're doing, but I'm going to be gone for a week. And then when I come back, there's a little bit more shipping, and then I'm going to be out in Kansas City for Crypticon. The 16th through the 18th. We'll be showing the Ghost Cut live. It will be actually the first ever time we've screened it on a big screen. So it's definitely going to be fun to come out. I'm going to be there signing autographs. My autographs are free. I will have copies of Never Hike in the Snow, or Never Hike Alone. I'll have some posters, maybe some leftover pins, stuff like that. And it'll be a good chance, if you didn't get a chance to get in on the Indiegogos, to have a one-on-one exchange and actually pick one up in person.
Right.
Very cool.
And
That's right. Crypticon.
Yeah, man. The KC crowd's really cool. Good people there.
Cool.
So,
Yeah.
I think they'll definitely pile into that one to see
I'm
that.
creeping my way across the Midwest. I started in Indianapolis, and now I'm kind of like moving my way. Actually, I got out to Gettysburg for one of them too, Pop Rock and Horror, which was a lot of fun. We did that in Gettysburg a year and a half ago, which was a lot of Tom was there, so it was one where Tom Matthews was also there, and so we got to screen Never Hike Alone and do some stuff. So yeah, I missed the convention circuit. It's been like a year and a half, it feels like.
Yeah, it's
been far
almost 2 years for us, I think.
But it's nice to see a bunch of cons popping up. Lots of people getting out there, getting back to it. I've seen, Tom just did one out in Monroeville at the mall where they filmed Dawn of the Dead, which is really cool. So I saw some fans taking pictures with him. He had one of the new pins on for Never Hike in the Snow, which is pretty cool. He had the arrow in the thing. So Tom was rocking the NHA stuff and NHS stuff, and I was actually just over his house the other day. He signed some tapes for us and things like that. So. It's nice to see people out there and getting to get back out there and celebrate their fandom.
I just couldn't get it together quick enough. I was trying so hard to get to that one. I think that's going to be a new con like every year now. I guess it's usually just a zombie walk, but this was the first time they actually did the full con, and from what I'm hearing, it was a huge success.
Smart. It looks cool. I mean, I was jealous of looking at it. I was like, man, that looks like a lot of fun. I'm glad to be getting back out there, and I'm excited to get out to Kansas City. I've been to Kansas City once or twice. I'm trying to think, what did I go out there? And I was out there for something. I was out there for like a family event, but I did drive by, so I guess that counts.
It counts. Give our best to Kaz when you get out there, man. ACS best.
Yep.
We'll do.
and Dead Dawn also is his assistant, I believe. So yeah, definitely make sure to say we said hello and that we had you on and we promoted the show a little bit. So
great.
Yeah, Crypticon, man. We love Crypticon. Was a real good time. I think it's, they get it right. It's all right there, compact, but I mean, it's fucking. That was a good one, man. That was one of my favorites by far of all the cons we've seen thus far.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I mean, I've fun at all the cons. CryptoCon's always a good one. They have a great list of guests. I know D. Wallace is going to be there. CJ Graham's going to be there. It'll be cool to see both of them. I was in 13 Fanboy with the both of them. So it'll be a nice little reunite because we haven't seen each other since then. And there's been some updates with, 13 Fanboy getting distribution and release dates and things like that. That stuff's going to be announced, I believe, in the coming weeks. And yeah, I've been keeping in touch with Deb because obviously we had a hand in helping her get that done. And, some of our team members are kind of installed in different kind of areas of that production. So, we're really excited because we've been waiting a long time to see it come out. And we're excited for Deb and we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're definitely on the wait list for that show. We can't wait for that movie to come out because we would love, I mean, when she was asking about theaters a couple months ago, we were just like, hey, I have a guy that just reopened like a historic theater in Oklahoma. I can make this happen. This is not a problem.
I do think that I that's one of the things that like we've always talked about too, even for Never Hike Alone. But I wanted, like, I know that, I mean, Deb, I think has some like legit, like we might be able to get into like theaters type thing. So she's working on that, but like whatever that run is, that there is definitely potential for a convention type tour of it to say like, you should book 12 dates. And we should all try to get there as much as we can, with different, try to get different, celebrities in different places. It's represented by so many different, horror convention goers anyway. I mean, a lot of these conventions they're already at. So find the conventions where they're at and start setting up screenings so you can start generating some of the home video sales and getting the word of mouth going. I really believe the convention circuit can be a great place to market an independent film and get it out to the fans grassroots and, start that sort of, I mean, this is where, films from the 70s and 80s, this is how they grew. It was the, you had to pass it to a friend. They weren't at every single VHS store. So, a lot of this is like the underground passing back and forth of projects that don't go out there like Conjuring and things like that. They got to hit the more grassroots markets and build their way up from there. But I think, with as much celebrity presence as she has in that film and just the fun story and to see it all kind of come together in the way it happened, it was truly a spirited independent adventure. And I think we're all excited to see how it comes out and celebrate, Deb and all her accomplishments in getting that film completed, because that's a lot of work. And Deb, she kicked ass. She did a lot of work on that. I think she cut it herself, colored it herself, did the sound, did a lot of work.
Damn.
So kudos to her. She's a workhorse, and I'm super proud of her, and I can't wait to see what she's created. She
is. All right, looks like we got Tyrone, Lorena, Luke, at least those three in here, and a few more. So welcome. Folks. We're about to get the movie started, but I got a couple more questions for Vincent before we get going. What is your role with Jason Rising? What were you working on up there that you can tell us at least? Yeah, so I'm a producer on the project. I've been working with James and Carl for over 2 years on the project now. When we first went out there to film the sort of opening of the movie, which is like the prologue of, Sheriff Daltrey going out and burying Jason after the events of the final chapter and telling a story that starts there. So it kind of retcons the Friday the 13th world. There is no Friday the 13th Part 6. Friday the 13th part 5 is debatable. I don't think James would have that in there. I think this would be a direct kind of correlation. There's different connectivity. It's definitely it's a different canon. It's like, imagine if Evil Dead sort of took over after part 4 in a way, and like sort of the rules start to expand. The thing that drew me onto the project when I first got onto it is the fact that Pamela also rises. She's I'm not spoiling anything. It's in the trailers. Yeah, but she resurrects as well, just as Jason. And so this is the first time we've ever seen Pamela and Jason on screen together like this. And I just thought that was such a fantastic opportunity. It's not something where you would first go to be like, well, if you're following canon and you really do it. It was like James just had this wild idea and I was inspired by it. And so I came on as a producer, eventually became a co-writer. James and I kind of shared duties on the script. He would do a pass. I would polish it up, send it back to him. He would, along the way when they were, because I mean it's his film, so he's gonna go in, and when they actually have to go shoot on the days that I couldn't be there were things that were like, we have to change this or change that. And so a lot of my job was to sort of watch as a producer and say, okay, if you guys are going to change these things, here are the things in other scenes that need to match, and here's how we need to pull this together. Or if there was ever like an issue on set where they're like, oh, we're trying to get X, Y, or Z to happen, and it doesn't seem like we have that with the cut that we have now. How can we fix this? And so I work with them a lot in editorial.
And that's what we were doing while we were up there, was locking down the final edit to walk through and make sure that everything tech-wise and everything cut-wise was like, this is the cut. And from here on out, you're working on visual effects. Now, can you slide a frame here and there? No one's going to do that. But once you lock sound, that is going to lock the frame. So you have to keep that in mind. So it's just really kind of setting up the checks and balances, getting them ready for the home stretch. They're doing the VFX and the sound right now. And that's why we were locking. It was like, you have to lock. Like, this has to be done. And I don't think, without giving away, there was also, we had always talked about doing an insert for a certain sequence that we always knew that we could create on our own. It wasn't something that we needed to have a big production for. So we always kind of had this thing off to the side. And they had sort of planned to do it before I got up there. But Portland had 120-degree weather a couple weeks ago. So the weekend that they were going to shoot it, they didn't end up shoot it. So it ended up being the weekend that I went up. So we took a moment to shoot these couple of insert shots for something in the end of the movie. And it was a nice sort of like, we got together. The first time I went out there, we went and dug a grave together. The first time I ever met these guys. And we shot this amazing opening sequence, which I'm really proud of. It's on the YouTube channels for Jason Rising, if you can find that. It's also on the Wonk Stomp Films. If you look at the Jason Rising section, you can get a link to there. And yeah, we worked, kind of set the tone. We were like, this is what we want out of the film. And I kind of worked from a distance. I was working on Never Hike in the Snow. I was working on Pathosis. I was working on, all these other productions that I'm working on now too, and sort of just floating above it and just keeping an eye on it, and really like coming up a few times and working with them filming and getting to sort of, work with James on set and work with Carl on set and, come up with some wild ideas. Like, we finished the ending, I want to say a month and a half ago. We shot the ending to the film, which was waiting for a year and a half because of COVID. So that was a big kind of monumental thing. And so it's nice to, like, after a year and a half of waiting for COVID to sort of give us the opportunity, like the opening, to go in and finish the film. You've been sitting around with an unfinished cut. There's lots of holes. There's things that like need to be done and you can't really do anything about it. And so it's been a really nice relief to go in there and be like, now we can film this scene. Now we can do these pickups. Now we can do this. And now we can finish the film. And no longer are they notes on an Excel sheet, but they're actually finished notes within the film. And the film is now completed. And we can now work on the fun stuff like titles and credits. And, Carl's working on VFX. James is working on score. And, we'll be producing behind the scenes, sort of being like, hey, maybe we can farm this shot out to get done here. So if you're a visual effects artist or you have some experience doing visual effects for films of different, like, wire removals, things like that, email us at wompstompfilms@gmail.com and we'll hook you up with the guys, and maybe we can get you some work doing on that. So we're going to be kind of doing that stuff for the next month. And then they're going to premiere on August 13th. On YouTube, so it will premiere there. They're also doing a live screening premiere in Portland at the Hollywood Theater. So the historic Hollywood Theater. Last time I was there, we went and saw Friday the 13th, Part 1 and 2. Adrian King and Amy Steele were there as special guests, so that was a lot of fun. We're going to see if we can get some guests to come to the screening. That's going to be one of our goals, is sort of like make it like an event. So like, we're going to show Jason Rising, but we're going to see, who in the area for, Friday the 13th alumni or horror film alumni will want to come out and attend the premiere as a guest. So we're going to extend those invitations out to some people that we know. And hopefully, make it an event for fans, and we're excited. They did some wild stuff with this film. It's really fun. It's Friday the 13th, but it's got a little bit of Predator in it. It's got a little bit of like cop procedural, like the what's that show? What's the Harrison Ford movie, The Fugitive? There's a little bit of The Fugitive in there, and it's a lot of fun. There's a little bit of Justified in there. I brought that kind. I was like,
oh man.
Originally, the original script had FBI agents, and I said, "Nah, let's make them federal marshals. Like, let's be like Justified. Like they're kind of like they're federal, but they're not like that federal. Like they're a little loose, you know what I mean?" And so we had a lot of fun with that. And it was like those guys were super collaborative. We had a lot of fun pitching ideas back and forth. Like James amazed me with his visual effects abilities, his on-set stuff. I mean, Christina Cordum did the main effects for it. But James did a lot of like the set dressing and built a lot of props himself and like did a lot of like hands-on stuff. And there were some, it was it was a lot of fun. I mean, we were working sometimes with like limited resources, but we kind of did the best we could with it. But it came out kind of awesome because of that. So there's a fun, like, it's a dark movie, but it's also got some lighthearted tones. So Evil Dead. That's why I think that it's like it's Friday the 13th meets Evil Dead. You got a headless Pamela wandering around like killing people. Jason's like Ted White style. That's played by Dan Kyle, and he's brutal in the film. We designed some brutal ass kills for him.
That's our boy.
Yeah, and so basically we worked on the edit. It's a nice peppy film. I'm going to say the running time is about 54 minutes without credits. So you're getting a Never Hike Alone about length film with credits. Probably going to be like an hour. But it moves along. It's fun. It's got comedy, horror. So I'm excited. I mean, I'm really excited about this. For all the Never Hike Alone stuff we do, obviously, like, that's my baby. But this has sort of been like, this is an opportunity to also, for me, to be like, I love Never Hike Alone and I love that world, but I'm also all about this shit too. Like, there's a lot of Friday the 13th that we could tell in Storyland, and it's fun to tell different stories and have that opportunity. So Jason Rise has been a good outlet for like a different style of storytelling that I don't get to do in Never Hike Alone stuff.
Yeah. Nice. Well, and then another project, we've had Cecil on last week, and we had Dave on 6 or 7 weeks ago, I believe. And we talked a little bit about Dylan's New Nightmare, and you're also attached as a producer to that. Can you tell us when that's supposed to start shooting?
Yeah, so they're actually running a campaign right now. Oh, did you want to throw in another question for that?
No, I get it, because like he got us all excited around here just talking about it and everything when he was on and everything. So I understand how he could sell it to you, and I just wanted your input and what really brought you to it. You know, what makes you like, wow, I got to get on this too.
I mean, it's usually the filmmaker and how what their plan was. And what really brought me on to Dylan's New Nightmare was the script and the core idea. I was like, this is brilliant. I was like, this works. I mean, this is something you could present to a studio and say, look, you have the pieces. This is an extension of actual canon. If you can get the actor to come back and reprise this role, this story makes sense in a lot of different ways. And it can extend out that way and open up doors for like a bigger story to be told. And what I liked about it was that it was to the point. It was simple. You know what I mean? It's something simple that can be executed, but still has a lot of fun things to do with Freddy and Dylan as an adult, and getting the nightmare stuff in there, but not trying to take an oversized bite to try and do a massive production, because there are things about like a massive production that we would want that we simply don't have right now. But doing something that could go out and prove to everybody to say, look, there's a lot of potential here. Here's just like the tip of the iceberg. Now it's up to you if you want to see more. And I think it leaves it in a position where it sets up Cecil to succeed because he can execute this script. We have the team built in order to do it. So a lot like how we did Jason Rising is how I will kind of handle sort of my duties on Dylan's New Nightmare. I'll sort of be there on set, helping them, to walk through the day. I'll probably be ADing a lot of the show. So I'll be the one on set running the day-to-day, saying, these are the shots we're doing today. Like, here's the order we're shooting in, and then setting Cecil up to succeed. And
it takes us back to Crank. So when do you think that will get going?
I think it's going to be this fall. That's what we've all been talking about. It really comes down to David's ability to travel. Right now, if you travel out of Canada and you come to the United States, if you go back, you have to quarantine for 14 days. Yeah. So Dave can't really afford to do that with the work that he does. Even though he does a lot of voice work, there's other things he has to get out of the house for, and sometimes go to the studio that he can't do in his own studio. And he's doing this project pro bono, and all of us are doing this project pro bono. So when we do these projects, we really have to work it around like, okay, when is everybody free? When can we all invest the time, make our own investment in it? And that's sort of like how we match the fans. It's like, if the fans are willing to give us the funds that will pay for the things that we need to make it look good, we'll donate our time in order to have that opportunity to bring you that story, because I do see it as an opportunity and a gift. And so really what I go to do is just try to streamline productions and make sure that we're picking up everything that we need. So when we go to editorial, there's no, oh shit, we missed that. Like, we need this or we need that. And this doesn't make any sense. Or what do you mean it's underlit? You know what I mean? Like, there's lots of things that like I ran into like at the beginning of Never Hike Alone that we worked out pretty easy. And sort of when you look around and you see other people doing stuff, you start to recognize the same things, and you go, no, don't go down that path. Right. It's this way. And I try to guide people to the best result faster and avoid the mistakes that we used to make. And just some of the stuff that I've learned, working on bigger sets and keeping everybody focused and understanding it's like everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And set, you're just getting punched the entire night. So, that's just the way it usually goes with whether it's the equipment or whether it's a rig or whether it's the weather. If you're not diligent and don't have a good plan, you can lose a lot of money. You can lose days on set, and it's the worst thing that can happen. So, we always try to, the productions that we work with, we always try to, even if there is an issue, which sometimes it happens, it's being able to navigate it when it's at its worst, and then being able to still come out with a great result. And then if there's damage on the other end, it's manageable damage. And it's something that it's like, hey, guess what? We shot out all the big stuff. Now you can shoot this stuff on a weekend where you only need 2 people. That's the 3 of us coming together and just doing something on a weekend and doing it on our own. This is something we can do. We don't need everybody else. And so usually when you prioritize everybody else, get all of them finished, then we can come together and we can pick our weekends where we want to cherry pick different scenes.
Yep.
That's how we'll usually do it. So that's usually how we kind of mitigate that on the kind of crowdfunding when we're not working for a studio, where we'd say, okay, we shot all this stuff, but we have some overages. Can we, put in for another 30 grand or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's like, there's none of that here. So we have to work to our budgets or else it's coming out of our pocket. So we're definitely trying to, and so that's what I'm there for. I'm there to be like, remember how much you have, work with what you have to spend. And if you've written something that's going to take 8 days to shoot and you can only afford 6 days, what do we do? That's when it becomes, now you got to make some decisions. Right. And that's film.
A film set is one of those things where a very minor inconvenience or a minor problem on set can snowball and ruin an entire weekend.
If you let it.
Easily. If you let it. And like you were saying, if you're not somebody that can recognize those minor inconveniences before they actually occur, you've been doing this a little bit now, and you can spot those and say, hey, like you said, don't go down that road. Let's go down this one. And
our team grows. And I think that's the best part is as the team grows. When I was doing Never Hike Alone, there was a lot of it I was trying to do it all myself. And then my team grew and things got better. And I recognize other filmmakers that are sort of where I was. They're a one-man band. They can kind of do it all. And they're doing it all. And so I kind of help them sort of separate themselves from all the tasks and be like, okay, now you don't have to produce anymore. You can just direct. The more you can just direct, the more you can grow in that role. The more you're off having to produce or off having to build something or off having to do something else, you're not directing. You're doing that other thing. And we can still do those other things, but I want to put you in a position where you can direct. And and then get the best out of what you want. And that's usually my goal as a producer is to set everyone up to succeed and then, watch everybody flourish. And it's a lot of fun. I got to do Never Hike in the Snow, and then I sort of sank back and worked on the post and been working on that. I haven't been able to do any of my own kind of directorial projects per se, but a lot of my friends, the projects that we've been working on are getting to that point. And so it's been a lot of fun watching everybody grow and getting ready to take on these positions. Like I watched James and Carl grow throughout the process of Jason Rising. I'm working with Renee Rivas again on a project called Judy, an original short film. It's actually going to be 25, 30 minutes. And we've been shooting that in blocks over the last couple of months with a good friend of mine, Ben Meredith, who shot Pathosis. And that's been a lot of fun, and watching Renee grow as that. And so it's my same goal with Cecil. He has a big vision for this film. We're extremely grateful to have Nico Hughes on the film with Dylan's New Nightmare and actually reprising the role and having that continuity and having the care to kind of tell this story and bring it into today. So there's a lot riding on it. And I think that Cecil saw what we went through, and he knows that we know how to kind of get the production done. And so now, instead of trying to do the production all himself, we're going to come in and we're going to help him out, and he's going to get out there and set and make something really cool. So right now it's still crowdfunding. Basically, with the first crowdfunding campaign, we made about 3/4 of what we were trying to raise, and then walked away with that and started to get ready for production. And so we're trying to raise the last quarter. So that's about $5,000. I think we're doing pretty well right now, but that's going to continue to go. And the more that we get, it's going to help because, shipping always comes around to bite you. And so does post-production. So post-production in sound, post-production in color, the ability to take it from one level to the next in every single facet will always be there as an opportunity. And the more, fans support it, especially Nightmare fans who want Nightmare material. There's a good team behind this, so it's going to be a lot of fun to sort of pull this all together and see it go there. Hopefully, like I said, September, October. Once Canada releases Dave, we're going to basically once Canada releases Dave, you can estimate that about 3 months from that is when we're going to start production, because that's sort of how we backed it out.
I can report July 21st, all restrictions, at least at the Michigan to Canada border, are lifted. You heard it here first.
Canada?
July 21st.
Maybe we'll just shoot in Michigan.
Well, I mean,
I know a guy.
Toronto's not far away.
True. It's just it's Cecil's based in Phoenix. I'm based in LA. Our cinematographer is based in Flagstaff. So most of us are out here. Our a Vex person is moving to Florida. So we're all sort of spreading to the wind. But that's the glory of film, is that Nora can work in Florida, build all the prosthetics, and then she'll just travel out. She'll stay with us for 2 weeks in an Airbnb, and then we'll get the film done, and I'll go back to our little corner of the world, and then post-production starts. But I'm really looking forward to that one too. That's going to be
that'll be fun.
Checking Freddy off the list is going to be a cool thing, because it's been a while since I've been able to kind of go down that road.
And Dave, not anybody could play Freddy Krueger. Dave McRae, I think, is gonna get this.
Yeah,
I think he's gonna kill it.
I love
no
it.
Pun intended.
I'm happy to be working with Dave. I mean, just getting to know him over the last couple of years, and him doing, we talked. I remember him talking about like It's Me, Billy before he ever told anybody about it, and watching it grow and watching him do it, and it coming out so good.
Man.
And it's beautiful, and it's just one of those things where it's like it's like respect, It's just like this great kind of camaraderie that we have, and I can't wait to work with him, and I can't wait to see him in the makeup, because the makeup is going to be so kick-ass. And once we combine those two things, it's just going to take on its new life, and this new Freddy, which I think look, I'm a Friday guy, right?
Sure.
It's like, so when I saw the way that Cecil was talking about this, I could tell he was a Freddy guy, and I'm sort of following his lead, and I love sort of stepping into this as sort of like being like, how does the lore work, and like really examining in that world, if this is what Wes said it was a dream demon that took on the shape of Freddy. So technically it's a dream demon, but still taking on the shape of Freddy, and there's lots of cool elements here to play with, sort of story wise. And I like this. I'm having fun watching, Cecil work with those elements, and I pushed him on the script too. So that's a lot about what I'll do is I'll be like, have you thought about this? Is this consistent here? And is this in the world? Is that in the world? And sort of establishing that. So when fans see this, it's gonna feel like this is a real place. Things that are happening, it feels like it's going to feel like our world, and Freddy is really coming into our world. And that's really kind of the goal with it. And as a producer, I want to set those goals. And so that's what we want to do. And at the end of the day, I know Miko's excited. And so it's going to be, I don't know, I'm just excited. I'm excited to bring that team back together. We had a lot of fun when we shot the teaser, but I think moving into the production, we're going to have a blast, because we have some really cool things planned out.
He definitely said, he said you would come up to him with questions in the script, like, well, what's this all about? And then he said he was ready for you and gave you the answers. You went, well, that makes sense. And then you guys moved on.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you got to press everything. I mean, that's the hardest thing in producing, is that I think the worst thing you can do to somebody is read their script and just say, hey, this is great. If that's all you're doing, then they're doing that too. You know what I mean? They're reading it and saying, okay, I don't need to do anything. You need to press it. If there's something that stands out, or if there's something that doesn't track, or if there's something that just bothers you, it's say it out loud and watch how somebody sort of talks about it. And a lot of the times it's usually this kind of stuck out. And they'd be like, yeah, me too. It was bothering. And, and so you kind of, you sort of initiate people forward to sort of root out an issue in a script, or where a script might be dragging, or finally make that cut of I wrote, this is one of the first scenes I wrote, and I really love this scene. And I'm like, yeah, but guess what? Take it out behind the barn and blow its head off, because it doesn't belong in the movie. And this is going to be such a nice transition to go from here to here. And you have what you have. You're just either you're repeating yourself, or, this is just too elaborate. Bring it so I can understand it. And if I can understand it, then like as a layman to Freddy, then the rest of the world that's going to watch it, it's not going to be just for like that one section of population that's going to understand every single reference. It's how can we generalize this in a way that still makes it, eloquent and emotional, but that we can relate to it in a way and sort of get caught back up in this story, in a relatable way that, even if it's not about Freddy, that there's something about Dylan's life that we can all sort of relate to. It's another thing we sort of pushed in it. And I think that like part of what really intrigued me about it was the fact that what Dylan is going through in his life, like, mid-adulthood, searching for like what he wants in life, and his like normal fears about where he's going and his place in this journey, and like what's been going on in his life start to rise up. This is where Freddy's now finding his power and starting to come back to life, and he's using his real life fears to come and taunt him with it. And I thought that was something that was very clever in the script, and so that's something that like definitely we're that something that I've kind of pointed out and being like, okay, like this is something I'm tracking as far as like we're going to push who Dylan is to make him feel like he's a friend of ours, it's somebody that we can relate to, it's somebody that we know. And the more grounded he is, the more, we're going to get connected to him. And then when Freddy shows up, it's going to be all hell breaks loose.
That's the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Let me hit a couple of these comments real quick. Tyrone says, Happy Independence Day. Like I said, Lorena's here. She says, hello, dudes. Luke says, thank you. This is to you, Vincent, of course. Thank you for making a great professional-looking fan film during this lawsuit. Absolutely looks incredible and just entertaining as a whole.
Thank you, Luke.
And he asks you, real quickly, if you can, what's your favorite movie in the Friday the 13th series?
Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives.
There you go. All right.
You can't tell yet.
Yeah, right. And
With
then,
the final chapter being a close second, of course.
Yes, it's right there.
642 is the way I remember it in our conversation
That's correct.
8 months ago or so.
It still stands.
And then Chris says hello. And Luke says about Dylan's new Nightmare, this will be better than the Nightmare remake.
Is the bar that high?
Is the bar that low? Is the question you should be asking. Jesus. And wow. All right, let's start this movie and get some commentary going.
Awesome.
If anybody out there watching has any questions, throw those out there. I will try to catch them as best and as timely as I can, but we'll see how this goes. So here we go, folks.
You can tell how less scared we're getting of getting sued because our disclaimers are getting shorter in time on screen. Whenever I go out, it was 30 seconds long, but it was like they have to be able to read it or else I'm going to get sued. I was convinced.
I got popcorn and everything, man. I'm ready for this shit.
Oh, nice. Good Lord. You and your popcorn.
The water.
I'll be muting it when I'm crunching. Don't worry.
Like I said, I got my Gatorade. That American pretty hard yesterday.
Shout out to Corey Kaufman, who helped design this logo.
Is that the who does some of your credit work?
No, Corey did just this. Usually the credits, it's a combination of me and then Mike Appy, who is the other editor. But it's usually, I do a lot of the credit work myself, the front end credits.
That time of year again. And
that's actually me.
That's your voice?
That's my voice. So this is from the first ever teaser, the second teaser that we made. I always loved this sequence, and I always thought it was kind of like, you know what? I forgot that a long time ago I always wanted to open up Never Hike Alone with this. And sort of lead it into the story to remind people about what was going into. But then we had the story in the middle of the film. And we were like, you know what? If he says it in the middle, we don't need it at the beginning. But for this, we thought, you know what the hell? So Mike recut this with additional footage that we just kind of pillared off YouTube. But if I ever had the money, I would love to go shoot like original stuff and kind of do that. Maybe if we make enough money for the Never Hike Alone sequels, we'll do that. Shout out to Adam Marcus, Ron Sloan, Deborah Voorhees, and Cynthia Kanai, and Tracy Savage, who will show up later. They did all the voices for the film, and of course Tom doing the voiceover for Disappear, which vastly improves this music video.
Now you went with almost more of a folky song with this. Where did this song come from? How did you get this attached to Never Hike Alone?
So same guy who did Another Soul for Never Hike Alone, the end song. His name's Trevor Vaughn. He's just a friend of mine from back home, and I have his entire catalog. And this song always made me think of Jason. If you listen to the lyrics and you kind of listen to like what it's kind of about, it's about this soul that sort of wants to rest and wants his bones to just come to a rest and disappear. And unfortunately for Jason, like as long as he exists, he'll never have that opportunity. And so he's doomed to repeat this life until he is finally defeated. And he's sort of like, he just as cursed as everyone else around him. And that's sort of
that shot right there where he's just waiting.
That's cool.
You know, when I first saw this, I thought, okay. And then he wakes up hearing somebody. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I always envisioned it.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, what is Jason doing when people show up? And sort of, this is what the original spirit of Never Hike Alone is about. It's about a group of people showing up at Camp Crystal Lake and disappearing. And that's what I originally wanted to make with the original film. It just became a 54-minute, $50,000 production. And I wanted to do something in a weekend that would be effective and at the same level, because we didn't have any money. And literally, this is the first thing I worked on Nora with, other than 13 Fanboys. So working on her one-on-one. I always had this idea for a music video. I had another idea for a music video with this, where it's Jason just wandering around the camp. But then we were like, let's kill some people. Like, I'm sick of reading about how nobody thinks Ghost Jason can kill people. Like, they're not giving Kyle any credit. They're just saying Ghost Jason's weak. So it's like, let's watch him take out 3 people in less than 3 minutes. And then we'll have some fun.
It's not like Jason is, doing any gardening or practicing yoga while there's no one at the camp or something like that. Of course, he's just sitting there waiting. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if we would have extended it, there would have been like kind of shots of him standing in different rooms, and like if I had the money, like flashing back to being a kid there, you know what I mean? And everything's new, but then being like stuck in both worlds, sort of thing. But when you're an independent filmmaker, you got to go with what you got. So it was like, hey, how about 3 kids go to play by the beach? And we thought, like, because we had the sickle, my mom sent me that as a gift. She's like, use it in the movie. So,
yes,
we're
Mom.
working antiques, so she sent me that, and I was like, I got to use this, and of course I got to throw it. And so, we kind of came up with some throwing shots on Never Hike Alone. So we were like, let's kind of use that formula, but do it a different way. That throwing shot is probably one of the most beautiful shots that we've shot to date. I mean, the background pan, the slow motion, it's spinning perfectly. I mean, like. It took a lot of takes to get that.
I was going to say, how many takes?
Probably like 15, 16. Like, because you got to line everything up perfect. And it's got to be in focus, all that stuff. So. And
then he just goes back to sit down.
And then what else is he going to do? And so it's sort of like, and I love reading comments where people are like, oh, he has friends now. I feel bad for Jason. And it was like,
that's not necessarily the case.
I mean, but it's in the same time, you kind of see like, does he really still want to do this? Does he still really want to murder people? And in the context of this ghost cut, it kind of shows that like, this is everyday life. I'm hiding in the camp. I'm murdering whoever comes in. And that's just how things go. And as crazy as it is to kind of start with a prequel and start working everything up to Never Hike Alone, I feel like a lot of the storytelling that's in this short, especially, is sort of telling of the world that surrounds what we want to do in the Never Hike Alone sequel. And I don't know, there was, before I kind of jumped into that, it's a big venture. And, we always know we wanted to go into the snow as fans and stuff like that. So we're like, let's rewind the story and do a prologue in the snow, and then set up Never Hike Alone, and we could just shoot it all next year. And then obviously COVID happened, and we weren't able to roll into our next campaign. And then it was one delay after the next. But, we just sort of had to sit back and say, like, okay, for now we have Never Hike in the Snow. Let's tell the story the best we can. We knew it was a huge cliffhanger ending. But it was, it's an episode. And, as far as like pilots go, I mean, I think it's a pretty rad pilot.
Definitely.
So this,
now you have some significance with the color yellow in this series. Is that correct?
Well, no, it's not so much. It's not so much yellow. It's more just giving our main characters a color that makes them stand out of the forest. Okay. So Kyle wears a red jacket, and that makes him pop out of the forest. And so I didn't want to do another red jacket. And as I was kind of going through different options with the costumer Steven, I saw a yellow jacket, and I think he might have suggested yellow, and I went, that will look great. Plus, with the blood, that's going to look great with the blood on the yellow. And so that's, I started thinking about the kid from Jaws, obviously little Georgie Denbrough, which we got roasted by Freddy. The Merkins, they roasted us.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Which was really funny.
It's a teenage Georgie.
Yeah, right. And so, this is played by Cortland Gordon, Mark Hill right here. He's one of the front guys. He's actually the guy behind Odyssey of the Odd with Ryan, who was a first AC on this film in PA. So I met those guys through making films, and they helped us out with that. I cast Cortland. That's actually Brian Forrest in costume right there. Got to give him credit. Right now we're filming in a snowstorm. There's literally a 2-hour window where we're shooting all of this. So we are running around with the camera, putting it on jibs, setting up special shots. I mean, we were going crazy, all to get it just during this downpour of snow, because this was basically, other than the stuff we had at night, this is all the snow we got all that weekend.
Why would anybody have a problem with this? With him taking a bow and arrow and taking aim like that? I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's a camp. It's a camp. Use what's at the camp.
You wouldn't think Jason learned how to shoot a bow and arrow when he was at Camp Crystal Lake years ago?
Hey, to be fair, I'm sure his depth perception is a little off.
That's why I hit him in the leg.
Yeah. He did miss.
Aiming in his general direction. He's just trying to slow him down. Doesn't have to kill him. Not going to hit him while he's like riding a boat through the back of the head.
Oh, God. No. Don't bring that up. Let's not bring that up.
Anyway.
That just brings up bad memories.
Back to our hero. Let me see.
This is awesome.
This was actually what's coming up here. I'll talk about it after it happens.
Okay. Yeah, this is a great effect.
There you go.
This was actually Kyle MacLeod's original death.
Okay.
We were going to do this to him in another version of Never Hike Alone. And so I've been hanging on to this kill for like 6 years. I always wanted to do the split jaw in the mouth, like just choking to death. Like not only did he get chopped in the face, but he choked to death on his own blood.
Right.
And Jason just watches him die because he's like, oh, fuck. Like, oops, my bad.
Well, it's not like Jason has to be anywhere. He's got time to wait and watch him die.
Yeah, but there's also sort of like it registering, like, what have I done type thing too.
There's your heavy footsteps that you threw in as a fuck you to.
Yeah, that's the loudest they get. This was sort of a callback to when we did the throw out the window camera move in Never Hike Alone, where it rolls and it sticks. We're like, oh, it'd be fun to kind of work with the GoPro again and throw it again and give it some motion. So I thought it was kind of funny as a button on this scene. Like, not only does he kill Mark, but he kills his car too.
Yeah.
And to throw out to the game, show him rip a battery out. Like, let's see it happen in real life.
Yeah. I noticed I believe the officer lingers on a gas can a little bit long while he's wandering. Or no, maybe that's Kyle in Never Hike Alone.
That's Never Hike Alone. Yeah, that's
yeah.
There's I think the gas cans show up in a few different places. There's actually a couple gas cans in Disappear too that we have. So we definitely try to sneak them in when we can. Is like you're walking through with Friday the 13th the game. Like, there's all the resources right there. I mean, they're great props. I mean, they look great on screen.
Now Vinny comes back.
Yeah, right.
What'd you call him?
Vinny Boombots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're both Vinny, so we're like, hey, Vinny.
Well, that's one way I can get away without having to screw up his last name. So
Guastafaro? Guastafaro. Yeah.
I think the first time I tried to say it, I was just like, there's no way I could do it at that point.
Guastafaro. It's not that bad once you get the hang of it.
I focused on it later and got it, but what was the conversation with him like, bringing him back?
It was fun. It was like a 3-hour conversation over breakfast, and I pitched him like the entire series. I was like, this is what I have for Rick, and this is before Never Hike in the Snow was ever a thing. It was sort of like Tom had introduced me to him, and I said, I have this kind of crazy idea. This was before the lawsuit. I'm like, I'm going to try and pitch this to the studios. I'm going to see if I can get this like on Netflix or something. Like, I feel like we can get enough momentum to do this. And he was like, whatever you need me, I'm all in. And then I started going to his acting class. So I've been sort of like shadowing his acting class as a director, watching him work with students, and sort of seeing how acting students prepare for gigs, how they prepare to do monologues and that stuff, to sort of get more in tune with their language, to see what helps them, to see what type of adjustments they make, to learn from them, and help me with, working with my actors on set.
Okay. I want to pause this for a second and ask you a question here, because Rick Colon, Sheriff Rick, basically asked his deputy to cover up the crime scene. He's got what he needs from the crime scene, and he wants it kind of cleaned up as best as he can. Now, if you can't reveal this because of later entries coming, is this something that Rick has been doing for a while?
Yeah. And I won't go too into detail, but most of it is because he doesn't want people going around saying Jason. Just like the mayor in Jaws doesn't want people going around saying Shark. And so if he's got the evidence that he needs, he doesn't want anyone else stumbling across it, especially this asshole. Because he's going to run around and go get the Jason train going again. And that's not what Rick needs. Rick likes his job. It's an easy job. And it's just watch this sleepy town and keep people out of this camp. And so he's put up the warning signs. He's put up the fences. He's done everything that he's had to do. And he's not going to stir the pot. And quite frankly, he doesn't even think that Jason exists. That's sort of the assumption that we're on. He's never seen Jason. And even though everybody tells him, it's like sort of, facts, like what are facts anymore? It's like no matter what anybody tells him, he believes that if anyone's behind it, it's Tommy. But somehow Tommy is manufacturing all of this. And so this will come back into play in the next film where, when another person goes missing and Tommy's in custody, there's a hole in Rick's story. And so everyone's like, well, he got arrested. And I'm like, for what? Trespassing? Like, he's going to be out on the street the next day. They can't hold him on anything. Plus, they're going to have bigger fish to fry. So we're going to touch upon the fact that, Tommy can't go around getting arrested every weekend. But this isn't something that's going to cost him his job. But he's not necessarily like he's walking on thin ice as it is. So the point in the next kind of setup is that we're going to pick up with Tommy before he meets Kyle. I think it's worth going backwards again. And we're going to see how Tommy met Kyle. And that's part of the first act of the next film, is we're going to kind of trace it back up to how Tommy meets Kyle and then tell the story from there. So there's going to be a little bit of overlap in as far as like time that we cover, but it's going to be really cool to see what Tommy's been doing for the last 30 years and what he's been doing since the events of this film. Okay.
That was just a question that I had kind of had in the back of my mind for a while, and I wanted to, since we had you, wanted to get it.
No, but I mean, it's definitely something it's a big part of it. Him keeping this a secret is a big part of it, and not letting people talk about it. Because if no one talks about it, it doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
Okay. Lorena says that's Dr. Vinny Boombots. Thank you.
Did you see the ones above it there? Some people not a fan of you wasting gear on set, sir.
I know. Yep. But I mean, the can did explode perfectly when we needed it to. I mean, it goes with the strum. Oh, beautiful.
Sometimes when a piece of film lays out with the music, it's just it feels so good.
So this obviously is Alan Mabry, but this is Brian Forrest, who also plays Jason. So this is my stunt double. So he's doing double duty. I was acting in Jason, and I was directing in Jason, and he was acting as Jason. But yeah, so this is obviously, and this is where like the film takes a turn. Like it's like we're on the Friday the 13th adventure, and then this was sort of like the scene that sort of inspired the rest of everything that's kind of happening. Was the fact that what happens in town? Like, how does this play out? How has Jason managed to stay hidden all these years and not be found and not be drawn back out? Like, what has he been doing? What is his technique? And so it was cool to kind of explore like all the things that have to happen in order for this perfect storm to take place. And how Jason navigates in the modern world versus how he operated in the 80s when he just woke up and killed people until somebody killed him.
Okay. Well, you're not going to have a mob that's led by Anthony Michael Hall chasing him down at some point, are
Not
you?
quite yet.
Okay, good.
There will be no. Yeah, I can't afford a mob.
When's the last time you saw him?
No, I thought this was a good scene because going back to what I was asking about Rick, it goes back to his constant struggle to keep this story hidden because he tells her nothing.
Yeah,
You know,
he keeps everything
he
close to his
knows.
chest.
Yeah, he knows the kid's dead.
Yes,
But
I
he
mean
tells her
he's got a
nothing.
pretty good idea that I mean he's
Right.
like the kid is dead. There's
Yeah.
this kid's dead. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I don't have answers. You know what I mean? It's like I can't go to a mother and tell her a kid's dead, and say like how. I don't know, but I found a bunch of blood. That's how I know. I can't find his body. Well, how? Like you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't fill her with that type of information right now anyway. I don't think.
No.
Until like you need to when you bring her down to the station and you kind of show her like this is what we're working on. This is like one of my favorite moments in the film, like the death kiss.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
It's always-
we're tugging at people's heartstrings right now. Like I'm really trying as a filmmaker to be like, no, let me show you that Friday the 13th can be emotional. Like you can have emotion, and you can have your cake and eat it too. And so, shout out to Anna Campbell right here. She's in Jason Rising. She plays Deputy Eve Glover. So she's the lead supporter. Kyle Vaughan is the lead as the Sheriff Daltrey. But yeah, no, you need to have that. Like we wanted to connect to that, and sort of like the story's laid out in reverse in a way. It's kind of a cool editing style where we're jumping around in time. It's a very different from Never Hike Alone. Even though it's part of the same universe, it's just a different story and it's told in a different way. And so we laid it out sort of as a different thing to give it some variety and not just do the same thing twice. You know what I mean? Not go out there with like, okay, a new hiker's going out. And, you know what I mean? It was like, let's sort of give people something a little bit different and keep them on their toes and sort of, make this interesting. And so, obviously this part where, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, what is this cryptic thing that he picks up? These 3 pages.
So if you kind of look close, it's a map.
Mm-hmm. And there's a grid that's marked off of it or something.
Yep. And so basically is a grid. That's what's off limits. That's the no trespassing zones. That's where Kyle ends up.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of like the map that he's drawn himself. And then the last thing is a satellite image of a cabin.
Of a cabin. Okay.
So he found Camp Crystal Lake, even though it's sort of been like he's trying to figure out where this kid went. And what does he find? He finds a satellite image of a broken down cabin. Well, he knows where he went now. He understood that he parked there and went to Camp Crystal Lake. And so he's starting to put the pieces together. And the fact that he gets this phone call right now and finds out that Tommy Jarvis has been up to no good. This is how he knows this is what's about to happen. Like he knows that something's going down at Crystal Lake and Tommy wants them out there, or Tommy is going to be going there. Tommy's doing something. And I got a feeling it's probably going to be at the camp because he probably set something up to fuck with us. And so, yeah, it sort of becomes that it becomes almost like a repeat of the scene from part 6 where Tommy tries to lead the sheriff out to the gravesite, but they don't make it. And when they do make it, it's been covered back over by Martin. And in this sense, Tommy gets so close. And in the sense of Tommy's journey, he's trying to prove that Jason is real. Jason is Bigfoot to this town. You know what I mean? Yeah, we heard about it, but no one's seen him in 30 years. So is he still real? And that's part of Disappear. It's people say he's gone, but they're either too dumb or don't know better. And a little shout out to Andrew making his appearance, which you can see that episode of Never Hike of Trail Junkies on the Blu-ray. That episode's on the Blu-ray.
Oh, cool.
It's one of the special features. So it's really funny. We had a lot of fun. And Mike did a great job cutting it. It's very 2017 because this is the year that it's set in still. Another favorite part of the film for me was I call this the Hereditary cut.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's definitely inspired by Hereditary, cutting out to the road and seeing Charlie. I was like, let's do that to Mark. How do we do that? Oh, let's dissolve from his smiling face to his dead face. Fantastic work by Nora and Rachel, our two VFX artists who worked and built that. It was a beautiful piece of work. carrying that around was a lot of fun. I was riding around with my front seat for a week. It was great.
Drive through, coffee.
Yeah.
Now, people have been getting confused. Jason is not operating the camera. It's just on. He's not changing photos. He's not watching videos. He's just it's the last photo that Mark took. So if anybody's wondering, like, why? How does he operate the camera? It's like he's not. He's just looking at it. I mean, imagine if you're an ancient relic picking up this new piece of technology. Like, you're like, what is this? And that sort of like humanity that's still in Jason, like the curiosity. It's like I want to bring all that back out of him and not just make him like a mindless zombie, but like he's a being that understands what he is and is sort of still dealing with it to this day. You know what I mean? Like still sort of interested by technology and the fact that technology is creeping in on him. That's like kind of the theme of Never Hike Alone. It's like in this one, it was a stills camera. Later on in this movie, it's a body camera. In the next movie, it's a GoPro. You know what I mean? Like, so his walls are getting smaller. And that's sort of Jason's story. And so that's sort of what we're setting up in this one too, is that the walls are closing in on Jason and he has to go deeper and deeper into the camp. And that's eventually where Kyle finds him, in a deeper part of the camp.
I can kind of relate to him having a difficulty with the technology because when Friday the 13th the game came out for PS4, I hadn't played video games in over 25 years, but I had to get this game. So I bought a PS4, bought the game, started trying to figure out how to use 15 buttons on one controller, and I went through probably 3 or 4 controllers before I've calmed myself down. And yeah, so I get it.
I feel you. I got a controller on reserve most days. All right, let me take this one.
Yeah. Now, here's a little bit of personalization you did with bringing Pamela back. You mentioned Jason Rising kind of does it more. I assume you mean she's actually back. This is more in Jason's head. Is that what you mean?
This isn't Jason's head. So this is in my view, my point of view is this is the curse manipulating Jason. This is how the curse keeps Jason docile. This is how the curse keeps Jason from breaking out and ruining everything. Like just going nuts or like leaving the camp or wandering the hillside. It's basically like this is his candy. This is what keeps him there. This is what keeps him on this plane is his mother. That's why he has the shrine to the head. So when he feels disconnected from his mission, which is carry out revenge until the end of time, his mother shows up and woos him back into a place of comfort to remember, do this for mother. And so it's a thematic thing. And so again, it's these are hints for where everything is going. And so we're not tipping our cap to everything. We're letting things just be as if you were a casual observer in this world. And I think that that's sort of the view I take is I sort of let the world play out. I'm not going to sit there and go, well, let me turn to the camera and explain to you, everything that needs to happen. It's like it will reveal itself in time through action and through the right piece of information will come out when it needs to come out. It's not going to come out in the first episode. This is one of the toughest scenes to film because it's 2:00 in the morning right now. We're all dead tired, and we had to set up a stunt where, my 50-something-year-old actor needs to get tackled by the 30-year-old actor. Nobody's going to get hurt. So kudos to Tom for doing his own stunts. Brian is a stunt man, so of course he took the tumble. See how we did that? They were like, well, Brian.
I will grab you and then land on my back.
Yeah,
or something like that.
No, they both hit the ground and took a tumble, and it worked. I mean, it's all about the cut. You get what you need for the cut, and then you move on.
Gotcha.
And then we did want to play up that, like, deep down, Rick is scared of the camp. The camp scares Rick to no end. Like, it gives him the willies. In an original version of the script, it sort of ended with his sort of, like, view of the camp in a way where, like, how it scared him and he was going to go away. And then we were like, this is way too soft of an ending. We need to do something brutal. And I had to figure out which character was going to die. And so Mr. Mabry here drew the short story.
Sorry, Mabry.
Yeah. And plus, I mean, he's a stunt guy. So why not? There was a version where I was thinking about having the mom come in and show up to get murdered, but I was like, I can't be that cold. Like,
not
no
yet.
way. No, and plus she plays such an important role. Like, I was like, but she'll play such a more important role in the next film because I sort of had her character inspired by one of the characters that was already in the script. And I kind of broadened her character so she has more of a role in the next movie. So it was nice to have, because originally the deputy took Tom away. This is another great.
Yep.
Bang.
Little fan
Yeah.
service there.
You
Yeah,
know, the whole thing with Rick, man, he doesn't believe in Jason. His fucking boss was literally folded in half. What does
he
it
thinks
take?
it was the psycho.
Tommy?
But
Tommy. He thinks it's Tommy.
Oh,
He thinks Tommy is just that crazy.
folded him in half.
He's that, but I mean, that's the delusional thing. That's what makes Rick such a great character, is that
Yeah.
he's delusional, and he hates Tommy that much, and he hates Tommy because he had the hots for Megan, and Tommy scared her off.
Rick didn't see a lot of that go down in 6.
Nope,
He
was
saw
locked
nothing.
in
He
the
got
cell.
locked.
Oh,
He
yeah.
got locked in a cell, and his
Yeah.
boss got fired. And so I told Rick, I told Rin, I was like, I wanted to write in this thing where, like, you're really feeling for Sheriff Garris, and he was like, "Oh, fuck no." He's like, "I was happy to get his job."
I think that was one of the things I said about when we first reviewed Never Hike in the Snow was, how in the hell did Rick Cologne get promoted to sheriff when he got locked in a cell? That
Made it
seems
work.
fishy, but
Good.
you make it work.
Good politics. Good politics.
Good
Yeah.
thought.
Politician.
That Barney Fife motherfucker.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, but the thing is, it's like no one else wants the job.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like at that point, after the 5th mass murder in town history, you're kind of like, you know what? Maybe not my job. But he came in and he cleaned it up. You know what I mean? He had 2 more
Right.
incidents, but they weren't on his turf. Or they were.
Now,
One was.
I have a question about this. There's multiple masks there. Where is Jason getting multiple masks?
So Jason's not getting multiple masks. Jason's getting basically what that is. That's a callback to some of the stories that I've told on other podcasts and kind of behind the scenes, which was they tried to reopen up the camp in 63 and 67, according to the history. So I was like, why didn't they bring like winter stuff with them? And they would have like winter gear packed away. And so the box says winter 67 on it.
Okay.
And the masks are kind of like all like masks for the kids, and those were
Okay.
those are 1967 style masks, and it makes sense to where the Ghost Hawk came from. So
Okay.
we're not saying the Ghost Hawk is the original mask that he's wearing in part 3, 4, 5. None of that. It's when Jason came back from Manhattan. That's where he pillaged that mask from. But that exact set is a set from another story that I have set in the world where how Ghost Jason becomes Ghost Jason.
Okay.
That's
Is that
it's a,
the March 13th, 1987 or something like that?
sort
that-
of, yeah. It's the one that was kind of built off of that one. I've been calling it. I've been calling it, but it's basically it's kind of like First Blood meets Friday the 13th, but more about like John Rambo going to live at Camp Crystal Lake, but it happens to be the same weekend that Jason's just landed in Manhattan.
Okay.
So Jason's in Manhattan when he gets to camp and he starts building a life there, and then a few weeks later, Jason shows back up.
Okay.
And
Well, I was wondering if
he's
like,
sort of murdering his way back to Crystal Lake, and this guy has no
Right.
clue as he's sort of like finding the meaning of life, and then you realize something about. And there's a real cool twist to that short actually, because he's having
Nice.
PTSD flashbacks because he was in Nam, and he's like he sort of has this like I don't want to spoil too much, but the camp shows its sort of magical side. So when he walks through a door, he doesn't necessarily walk into a cabin like this. He walks into the jungle, and he finds himself back in his own flashbacks. And Jason kind of like observes him in these flashbacks and judges him in a way. It's a real kind of crazy. It's a crazy ass story. It's different,
Interesting.
and it's the birth of Ghost Jason, and you kind of see how this version of Jason came together and sort of how he started living his life, post that time, and kind of go, and then it leads into disappear in a way.
Okay. I was curious about the mask because my thought was, well, maybe tourists were coming to check out Crystal Lake and they wanted to take pictures with their mask on, and they just once they got killed, he was just like, all right, I'll keep this for later.
Also noticed the blue chevrons being the big 4-5 fan out of the group. So I was like, oh, at first.
Yeah, I was like, hey, what are we going to do with it? I was like, you know what? And I think they're black. They're actually black. They're black Roys. Or they were blue. I think they did blue. Either way. I was like, let's do some Roy chevrons. Like, they came with different chevrons, so let's like make one a Roy, and I'll make that one the one that stands out. Because you could think like maybe Roy came here and this is where he got his mask. You know, that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
in the fact that it's from the camp, so the wind actually blew out the candles in that shot.
Nice.
That wasn't special effects. That actually happened.
Just good timing.
Great timing. Yeah, and the wind pushed all the way. Like there was a big burst, and it just got us. And we just had to hold still. And I was in costume. Yeah.
It had to be
Now,
fucking terrifying, man.
How about that effect? How difficult was that to pull off?
Oh my God!
Because that's one you can only do once, right?
No, we did it twice. So we had a
did do it
head
twice?
we could reassemble. So we could do multiple takes. So they filled it with a bunch of goo, and they had sort of like a face that was around it. And on the cut, we could sort of like mask some of it and do stuff. So it's a combination of like a little bit of VFX, but mostly like pieces of the head disintegrating and then blood inside squirting everywhere.
Okay.
So it was, and we had like a pneumatic cannon that was bursting everything out. So it was really cool.
No, looks great, and it's one of those that's not on screen very long because sometimes the shots will ruin themselves if they're on screen too long. But.
Sort of like the part 2 extended cut.
Yes.
You can find on your Blu-ray. You got that.
Yes.
One.
Yes.
You're like, oh, that's why they cut it. Not because of the MPAA, because the actor's being a goof.
Right. It doesn't look real anymore after 2 seconds.
I know. When the sheriff is dropping for 10 seconds, like.
There's Tracy.
Yeah, Tracy. Oh, shout out to her. Hey, I'd call her because we worked together on 13 Fanboy. I was like, Tracy, would you mind? She was like, I would love to. Let's do it.
Was that just a green screen for both of them? And did they do this and send it to you? And
Nope. We brought them out to a little spot in at Laurelwood Post, and we hung up a green screen and shot them both on the screen. And yeah, just kind of worked it in post. It was post-COVID rules, so we were all kind of like spread out, and kind of taking care of it that way. And we cut this together for the ghost cut. That way, fans could have a little bit more. Of a conclusion of what happened. And so the story that Rick is telling, everyone's like, liar, it's actually the truth. They went back to Crystal Lake. They found the cabin empty, and all they found was a set of footprints and a hole in the ice. So I'll let Friday the 13th fans fill in those gaps of what happened and kind of what that meant. And
okay.
I think that's kind of a cool, like, it kind of shows, like, Jason's ingenuity and the fact that, like, he knew what was coming. And he took steps to do it, and like it's probably a brutal existence right now for him, living underwater with a bunch of bodies and a head. But this is the only way he can stay hidden, or else the police are going to find him. And so here's another great example too of like a big event happening, them doing the due diligence of going into the camp and trying to find out what happened, and still coming up empty. And again, and then leading into now, things get quiet. 3 months pass. And this idiot starts driving up the mountain.
And he decides to take the shortcut.
And he decides to take this shortcut. And then my life changed forever.
Yeah. Now you said, I think we talked a little bit about this. This story went through several iterations before you landed on this one.
Mm-hmm. There was a few different ones that I was kind of kicking around.
There was. And you also said that you hated found footage, but now you made a found footage film, sort of. I remember that in our conversation a while back.
Yeah, I was never a big fan, and it was just I was like, if you're going to do Friday the 13th, how would you do it if you were going to do found footage? And then it was sort of, I saw The Martian, 127 Hours, and sort of went, that's a way to do it. Like, that would actually be kind of cool. And that's sort of where this came from. It was sort of that, with the previous versions that were more like a character has a phone with them doing stories, and it was 5 minutes long. And that's the version where he got the axe in the mouth. There was another version where it was just a guy running on a trail. He gets killed by Jason. Another person runs down the trail, starts to follow sort of like the trail of carnage down, not blood so much, but like there's something that leads them over to the edge of the trail, and before they get there, another person they're hiking with stops them from going down the trail, and they run the other way, and then it ended with that body getting dragged off, like Cortland in Never Hike in the Snow, and then the tagline was Never Hike Alone. Like, the guy who was hiking alone died, but the person who was hiking with somebody ended up making it out of the woods. And so that's where it started, and that was the first thing we ever filmed, and it didn't come out great because stuff was out of focus. It just wasn't engaging. We didn't have any good VFX, and I was like, I can do better than this. And We rewrote it for the phone gag where the guy's going around Crystal Lake making a story, and then Jason shows up and chases him and kills him. And then we sort of shot a trailer that felt a little bit more grown up. I think that's when the Martian and 127 Hours started to influence me. I go, you know what? Let's not make it a phone. Let's make it a GoPro. Let's make him like a vlogger. I think that makes it a little bit more established. It's not as like, he's not a documentary filmmaker, but this feels like grounded to a certain degree. And then we discovered the camp. And so it was that progression of things sort of kind of building as we were going on that all of a sudden I kind of had all those pieces in place. It's like, okay, I got all these pieces. Let me just arrange this and write a bigger story. And that's how this story came together.
Gotcha. Now, and you've known Andrew for a while. Where did you guys meet up?
We met working in animation on a film called Rock Dog in Venice, California. He was a production assistant when I was the production manager, so I was running the story and editorial teams and most of the front-end development and all that stuff for the film. And Andrew was sort of just doing part-time PA work. And we just got along and hung out a lot, watched movies at lunch and talked about movies, and he wanted to be an actor. And I knew that he was a model, so he's a cover model for romance novels. Specifically ones that are part of like the Apollocon series. So he plays a lot of like Greek gods and things like that. And so we're like, yeah, man, let's like take this like sexy dude and put him up against Jason. Like it'll be perfect. Like he's got sort of like the Chris Helmsworth sort of swagger to him. He's built. He's got like enough athleticism. I would believe that he could kind of at least survive a little bit. And we just kept pushing and testing him, and he just did so many great things with the character. And over the years, just became really good friends, you know, through the process and then after the process, and doing some of the conventions together and working together on other projects. He's in Pathosis. Obviously, we came back and filmed the Trail Junkie episode that you can find on Never Hike in the Snow, which is a lot of fun. I love working with Andrew, and I'm excited to kind of get back out there with him because, you know, his story continues too. And so it's going to be fun to bring Kyle MacLeod back after now like 4 or 5 years.
I'm glad he's coming back, man. That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll bring that lighthearted tone back to everything. I think I'll stop being a downer. Stop making everybody sad.
Until you kill that poor mother in a future episode.
We'll see. We'll see what her fate is. Everyone's on the chopping block.
Now, did you use the same set that you use in Never Hike Alone in Never Hike in the Snow? Was it the same location?
Only partially. Most of the two sets that work together are Disappear and Never Hike in the Snow. We were unable to get back up to the camp for Never Hike in the Snow. It would have been way too hard to get vehicles up there and way too dangerous. So we established one part of the camp in Disappear for where he is in the past. That connects to Never Hike in the Snow, and then in Never Hike Alone, you're going to see how the two camps connect.
Okay.
So the goal is to sort of show that like there's a forest green part of the camp, and then there's the original camp. So there's sort of forest green was built out in front, and that's where Jason's sort of hiding now. And in Never Hike Alone, that's the deeper part closer to the lake where Jason moved. And that's where they kind of had the original camp where they didn't go back and build over it. They just kind of built near it. And that's how we, after all this time, kind of got around the Camp Forest Green, Camp Crystal Lake sort of mantra. And since in part 7, Camp Crystal Lake goes back to being Camp Crystal Lake, we were able to change the name back too. So there's no Camp Forest Green memorabilia, and it sort of worked out logically. And we're like, oh, okay, this works. Perfect.
Well, and I know you kind of stumbled across this campground, you know, quite luckily. It's just completely abandoned?
Completely abandoned.
Wow.
Since 1988.
Now, how much set decoration did you need to do, or was some of that stuff there?
The ping pong table was there. The octagonal table was there. The beds were there. There was a lot of wood. But as far as like the tables, we had to build those. All the signage, we built all the signage, all the props. We brought up all the props. Okay. There's, you know, a couple of things from the camp, like a cabinet here or there, but for the most part, we built everything. Oh, and the shelves. The shelves are the camp. So like we cut those up and moved them around and repurposed those a million different ways. Okay. We built a hallway. in one
How
of
about
the
the
rooms.
kitchen?
The
The kitchen
kitchen
area was.
that's all just filled with stuff that we brought up there.
You did take that up, okay? Because
Yeah, it's like some
I
of the pots
was.
and pans that look a little. In fact, we actually a lot of our props were stolen. The reason why there's some newer pots and pan in that scene is because we had older ones and somebody came up and took them because they were antique.
Oh wow!
Look.
Like
Yeah.
they came up to the camp while you in between shooting or something. And
Yeah, well, what happened was that we used to store stuff up there, and it was the week of filming, and the production designer went up there thinking, "Oh, no one will come up. I'll just leave these here." And when we came back, somebody came and took some of our stuff. Like there was like a little mini TV. There was a whole bunch of shit that like we were devastated, and so they had to go
Damn.
run into town the next day and get more props at the local like bear. And the selection wasn't as good, and so we just kind of hey. You just got to go with it. And you know what I mean? It's a little detail. It would have been nice if we had the original pots and pans in there because they were really cool, old brass. But we just had to do what we did and lived with it. But I mean, like at the end of the day, like that's a point where like you're looking around for stuff. Like most people are watching the film, like looking forward, like what's gonna come out, and are following the story. So most people don't really notice. There's a lot of things like that in the film, honestly, where, the story's just cruising along and you don't really sort of like right now, you don't know that like, you're not really paying attention to the fact that in one shot, the grass is a little browner than in some of the other shots because they were shot in 2 different seasons. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm noticing that.
Every time you watch this, I can't imagine. You must be like, oh, fuck, there it is. Yep.
There's that one shot again.
There's that blade of grass. That's not right. It was driving me nuts. I saw it, but we let it go.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, and that's you kind of have to like make peace with that stuff. And that was sort of like with Jason Rising. It's like, okay, now it's time to make peace. This is the sequence. This is what it will be. We've worked it to its completion. And, it's like sometimes you're just going to make peace with the fact that like it's not the original idea, but it works and it tells the story. And if it tells the story, you've done your job.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it doesn't always work out the way you want it. It's just it becomes 3 different films. You just got to get used to that.
That set you found though is absolutely fantastic.
So this is actually in Malibu. This part. This was behind where I was living at the time. This is a 15-minute hike from where I lived, and it's a brutal hike. But this trail was so beautiful, I had to shoot here. In fact, the original Never Hike Alone is shot here. The one that we can't. And the short was always supposed to take place here. And I'm so glad that it became a part of this set. And this became such an important, the 2 scenes that take place here are so important to the story. And Jason showing up for the first time and all that stuff. So it's this is one of Kyle's best scenes. Although Andrew told me later on that he was super hungover this day and thought he was delivering a bad performance. I'm like, no, you look like you're kind of like upset and like tired. He's like, good, okay, it works. Like you know
what? Being hungover doesn't necessarily. That's not a performance enhancing issue. I mean, it can help sometimes depending on the performance that you're looking for. There's this story that Mark Ruffalo tells where he's doing a stage play with somebody, and somebody slips a real joint into like the first scene of the play, and he's smoking it. And he's looking backstage, and the prop master that did it is just laughing his ass off. And he says, "But I got the best reviews of my life from that performance."
That's funny.
So,
yeah, no, it was, it's just like it shows you that like it's literally like sometimes it's like, hey, Kyle, can you, Andrew, can you come out this weekend? Oh yeah, I'll be there. And like, he worked that night before, and he's a bartender at the time, so he's probably out having a good night, and but he shows up the next day and he kills it. And he did it every single day. This is, let me see. Now we're up in Big Bear. This is a place called, what's this lake? I'm trying to remember the name of it. This is one of the original locations that I found too. I actually scouted this location out in 2013. And I just love the fact that like this log went up this rock and you had this great view of the lake. And believe it or not, I mean, the lakes have been shrinking out here, but this lake used to go even further than it does now. And a lot of people think this is a digital lake, but it's not. That's the actual water. There's not an ounce of visual effects in this scene, or really like much of the movie at all. I think all of our VFX was like paint outs.
Wow.
Yeah, that's shot.
Oh, Bluff Lake. That's the name of it. I had to see it. I had to just see it. So that's Bluff Lake in Big Bear. That is now the third. No, this is the second lake we've used in the film so far. So we also used Emerald Cove from Tahoe in the opening. We also used Jenks Lake in our first ever teaser. So the Jenks Lake, which appears in our first teaser ever, is the lake that we open up on and Never Hike in the Snow, where we fly over it and tilt down and Mark's running along. It's the same. Those are both the same lake. Okay. So we are trying to pull these worlds together and use things multiple times, so it's not always something different. And then later on in the film, and Disappear, and then later on in this film, we're at Lake Marion in Flagstaff, where that second camp actually is.
Right.
So that becomes like a nice second base camp for us.
Lorena mentions very cool that you're telling us about the location. She was going to ask. Faye says, this has been a great interview so far. Vincent seems like a great dude to work with.
Try to be. Sometimes they want to strangle me.
Well, that comes with being the boss sometimes. You got
right?
Yeah. And Lorena also says people will steal shit no matter where it is and film it and put it on YouTube with a title like Spooky Cabin, Haunted Pots and Pans. You won't believe this.
Right? This sign is still at the camp, by the way. You can see it. It's
nice.
In the main camp. If you find it, there's a map that we put out there in our scripts, which we actually, if anybody wants a script, I have about 5 or 6 left over from our sale. If you want to just email us, swampstompfilms@gmail.com. But it has a map to where this camp is. So this is now, like, from now on, we're at the location for a long time. And we spent months up here. I mean, we spent a year up here, really. Wow. And there are different hidey holes that we were hiding equipment and props in. We were locking, like, basically we would take all of our equipment, lock it in Jason's bedroom, and then cover it with what's the name of the black material. I can't remember the name of it right now, but we would just like hang that around so you couldn't see inside, and then we'd lock the outside so you couldn't get to it. There's all of our props, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Oh, Duvetine, that's what it was. We had like Duvetine that lined the inside of it so you couldn't really see it. I loved these cabins. These are the actual kids' cabins, and we always used to joke, like, who came up here and slept in these things? Like, legit, bears could just walk in here and like eat kids. Yeah, this was all. This sequence is really the story of us discovering the camp. This is what we were doing. Right. We were bounding around and running into the buildings and checking everything out. And, Chris,
just thinking of all the possibilities.
Yeah, our cinematographer Chris was like, "I'm coming with a gun." Like, please don't do that. He's like, "No, I'm coming. It's like I'm gonna arm myself." And I was like, "Okay." Andrew was always walking around with like some like hatchet or knife or like an axe. Like, he always had a weapon in his hand. He was always convinced someone was gonna pop out. And I used to go up here by myself all the time. I had never even thought about it. Wow. Yeah, so that right there, that the FM radio or the radio thing, we found that at the camp, so we put that in the movie too, because we were like, this is such a cool box. Like, this is like 1,000% something you'd find in that. This box is actually from this woman, Sunny, who owns cabins down the street where we used to stay. So we saw that in her her lobby where she checks us in. And I was like, this is a great box. Can we borrow this? I want to make this like a mailbox for Steve Christie. And so she let us borrow it for the day. And her father had built that in 1932.
Wow.
He let us use this family heirloom, and then we shot it and then brought it back to her that day. And we're like, thanks, it's in the movie now.
That's too cool.
That's cool.
And we thought it was the perfect place for Steve Christie to hide his Playboy. And that, in fact, that's one of the things that got stolen was the original crate that we had, that Steve Christie kept all his stuff in. So we had to replace it, and Sunny hooked it up that day. She let us borrow that thing. And so it was cool to have that box instead.
Wow.
This is actually one of the first sequences. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, people suck.
Yeah. So this is one of the first sequences that we shot. We prevised this like maybe 3 or 4 times. We went out and we tried different cameras. There's a version of this on our Womp Stomp Films page that sort of shows a different version of Never Hike Alone. Like, when we first started, we had a test sequence that we kept shooting over and over again because we were like, let's find the equipment that's going to work. So we were able to take all this footage of sort of the same stuff with the different equipment and say, all right, this is what we want to go with. Let's do that. And that was before we crowdfunded.
Nice.
So we thought we were going into it with like an idea of like what we had to rent and how much it was going to cost.
Now I like your use of the crime scene flags.
Mhm.
I know you've talked about it, in a lot over other podcasts and things, but I've always appreciated that as like, okay, that's a good way to connect the camp,
Mhm.
even though it's not quite exactly the same camp. I mean,
Yeah.
going back and recreating that camp would have been expensive as hell.
Yeah, I mean, this is almost in a way, it's got like a reboot quality to it. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, we're obviously not at Camp Novi Bosco, but
Mhm.
if this is the camp that's going to be Camp Crystal Lake, we got to make this place feel like Camp Crystal Lake. And it's in our world. And I think it's nice that Never Hike Alone, although we're trying to say that like we're trying to wrangle the canon in a little bit, that like we've moved into our own multiverse that allows us to sort of operate in our own way, sort of like DC New 52. You know what I mean? It's like, or Earth 2 or like that type of stuff. It's like all the things are mostly the same. It's just a few details are moved around. Things look different. There's a different production design. We didn't like handcuff ourselves being like, we have to look like that. It was, this looks cool, almost
Right.
cooler in some ways than some of the things we've seen before, or is equally as stylistic as, say, a Jarvis House or a Higgins Haven or a Packanack Lodge or anything like that. But now we're giving that sort of grandness to Camp Crystal Lake. Crystal Lake in this story is sort of meant to be grand and big and bigger than life. Like it is to us as fans. So I feel like, especially this, this is obviously the crown jewel of the entire place with these windows, that fireplace.
Walking into that room, you had to have almost had an orgasm.
It's a religious experience. I mean, it really feels like, wow. And to think like people used to have fun here. People used to eat lunch here. Like,
Yeah, this
now
is
look at
maybe
it.
like the cafeteria or the food hall or whatever.
Yeah, it was definitely the cafeteria. Bats live in the belfry now of this, in the rafters. They swoop down at you.
Nice.
And so, go ahead.
I was like, no, that's just witches. I'm like still trying to figure out as we're watching this movie. It's like, man, that room alone was beautiful. You can only imagine what it was like when it was. It's like, how do you just abandon a camp like that? And
I'll tell you how you get sued by a local township because they claim that you're using their water supply and you owe them like 20, 30 years of back taxes for using the water. So you move your camp to another camp and you never pay the bill. And that's what happened here.
You got someone else that's like, that's prime real estate.
Not the spookiest story.
Yeah, but
tax evasion.
Hey, that may come back to haunt some people from time to time. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. I mean, if it wasn't so cruddy-duddy to get up there right now, it's like almost impossible. I would love for somebody to turn that into a backlot. It'd be the coolest thing.
Yeah. This, that room alone. I remember that first shot going in there. I'm kind of a sucker for old buildings and things like that. I want to take photos or video of something when I find things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine if I was actually scouting for a location and walk in there and just be like, all right, we're home. This is it. This is it.
I mean, we looked at each other like, you think we can make this work? It was less about like it being the perfect place and more being like, now we actually have to fill it with stuff. Mm-hmm. That was the challenge. But at the time we could get vehicles up the road. So we were making the trek every weekend. Imagine being 12 years old and finding a place like this. Basically the same feeling. I mean, we were like, like kids, like Fort Camp, like, let's go to Camp Fort this weekend and go hang out and be kids again and go build stuff and get wood and, go build bunk beds. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like go hang out and do this or do that and just like kick around like idiots like we used to. And
Steve, you bring the Playboys.
Yeah, right. Or like, we camped up there. Me and my brothers had an ongoing thing. We went up like 3-4 years in a row where we spent Thanksgiving in the camp. And we would go up there and like camp out the night before, then drive back to LA and cook and have a day. And it was like, it was a lot of fun. And we would go up there and act like idiots and have a good time and it's a great place to camp. I don't know if that's legal to camp there, but we just did it.
Now,
We also did clean it up a ton.
which death is that ribbon supposed to signify? This is is this Jeff and Sandra?
Jack, no, it's Jack and Ned.
Oh, okay.
So Jack on the bottom bunk, Ned on the top bunk.
Gotcha.
So it's a double whammy. So this is where Kevin Bacon ate it.
Okay.
So that was sort of like we kind of got like the sheets right to sort of kind of go from there, and the bunk bed kill. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we had like blood on the top bunk, to sort of signify that like if you knew the kill, you'd understand that like all the blood dripped through the beds and then spilled out onto the floor. And to try to recreate that. One of our more clever cuts. Going from one building to the next, like that was actually another challenge, was how do you fit this puzzle piece together to feel like you're going deeper and deeper into the camp, even though primarily we're using two buildings, and we're getting multiple sets and buildings out of two main buildings and then spattering it with a couple of like inserts from other buildings, but separating rooms and really isolating each room to make it feel like it's built on a soundstage versus let's work to these rules, other than like, no, if we're looking out a door, and even though that door technically leads to the kitchen or comes from the kitchen, we don't know what that room is right now. It hasn't been established, and you can't tell what it is. So let that character enter from that location, and that will connect it from this room in this building. You know what I mean? It was like, how do you really design this? Like, and everyone who's like, sometimes I hear people like, it's just a guy walking around. It's like, how hard it was to design a guy just walking around. Like, he just can't go anywhere. It's got to be woven into an actual story path leading to his discovery of Jason. And when you look back on Never Hike in the Snow now, and you look back on Disappear, and you realize that like in that movie, Jason was sort of not that hard to find. And in this movie, he's deeper into the camp. It's like the real heart of the camp, this real kind of like back attic pantry that, is now a place that like we can kind of say like, oh, like this is where Tommy never went, or this is the place. Like Tommy never figured out the maze because he always felt like he walked into the camp and came out another place, like never the same place twice type thing. And to say like, where was Jason hiding now? And that sort of becomes a key component to Never Hike Alone 2, which is Andrew knows the secret now. So, this is going to be, now he's a target. And that's sort of like his sort of mission in part 2 is survive, because he thinks he got out of his movie. In fact, I really want to keep the line in the movie where Tommy's basically telling him that he's got to like help him. And he's like, no, man, I survived my movie. I'm not coming back for the sequel. And I'm like, I don't know if that's too meta, but it's just so Andrew. Like, yeah. So I'm sort of been but it's that's his sort of thing. Is like, he's kind of like the Han Solo in a way. He's like sort of Han Solo and Luke Skywalker at the same time. He's got the answer to the whole thing, but he doesn't want to go back. The reluctant hero. It's classic storytelling.
Gotcha.
Here's your gas can.
Yep. There it is.
And one of and like Andrew just always had to touch everything, and I said, go with that. If you feel like you got to touch something, touch it. Like interact with it. Interact with your surroundings. You're a host. You know what I mean? Like use the set. Like get inspired by the set. And if he ever like went off the book, I'd be like, nope. Back to one. Let's not do that.
Let's start over.
The time it was like me just trying to not laugh. You know what I mean? Thank you.
Right. Tyrone says he enjoys the transitions from one room to another. And Lorena says that would be absolutely amazing. If I found a camp like that, I'd be there as often as possible. Mm-hmm. Closest thing we've got in Wisconsin is old graveyards.
Yeah.
Those are cool too, though.
Cool, yeah. You can do some fun stuff in graveyards. Return of the Living Dead.
Yep.
This is a cool set. This used to creep people out. We used to climb into this room through the roof. When we would lock up the entire building, and in order to unlock everything, which is all locked from the interior, we would climb through a hole in the roof and then like descend into like the lower part of the camp and then like unlock the doors and like open the doors. It was kind of an event when we got back to the camp. It was kind of cool.
Dang it.
Hmm.
Blanked. I had something I was going to ask you, but it went away for a minute. It'll come back.
The original.
Now, is
head.
that not the same one that's used in Snow, though?
No, we're gonna continue to use that one. We needed something to be consistent, and we needed to make copies of it. We couldn't make copies of that one. It was a very one-off type thing. We didn't think we were going to make more movies. You know what I mean? So
Right.
One of the things that's going to change in Never Hike Alone 2, when we do that as a piece, like we're basically just going full boat on everything, being like, listen, like now that we got real funding, everything's going to look like it's got real funding. Like Jason's going to get a little bit of an upgrade. Pamela's head obviously got an upgrade. And so Jason is sort of going to be, it's going to be Ghost Jason, but like there's going to be better prosthetics and things like that, better, like more articulated hands, gloves, and just an overall sort of like detail touch up to sort of, you could almost watch Never Hike Alone 2 as its own thing. And knowing everything else that's around it makes it more fun, but it will be its own movie and it will sort of exist in its own space as a sort of the way everything looks, to be like, no, like you guys gave us all this money, like here it is. Like if we would have had this at the beginning, this is the way it would have looked, but since we have it now, we're going to make it look good, and this will be sort of like the cherry on top for everybody to be like, we went from this to what we have there. We're getting a lot of help from Bill Hunt. He's designing sort of a take on this Jason, and we're gonna not build him from the ground up, but everything's just gonna get that next round that we couldn't afford last time is gonna get it this time. Now that we've kind of established it, we know what we're working from. We already have all that headway. This is my favorite sequence that we've ever shot. Like
Keep
all
those
this stuff.
eyes dark, man. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, we'll never see the eyes.
Oh,
Thank you. See the eyes. That's always a big thing on me. We do see it a little bit in Jason Rising, but I think in the right way, because we did sort of see Ted White's eyes every now and then. But they do something kind of unique with theirs, which is cool.
I can't wait. I love the idea of a final chapter sequel or continuation. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's its own lore. You know what I mean? It's got kind of its own story. It's woven like a family story into it. Kind of like brought some attention to like, again, it's like it's more about like the police that are in charge of like running the town, and the torch is passed from father to son, and so the father buried Jason, but the son sort of has to keep him buried, and shit goes down, and people have to step up, and it's a wild ride. It is a wild movie. I'll warn you now. It is fun, and the kills are really cool.
You mentioned part 4. Little side note: one of my neighbors, freshly 21 years old, her and her boyfriend are just now starting to watch the Friday the 13th movies because they've heard me talking about them, and they watch the show from time to time. And they finished part 4 the other night, and she comes running over and knocking on my door. She's like, "Okay, now Tommy's not possessed, right? Tommy better not be possessed." And I'm like, "Watch the next movie." And she's like, "Tommy better not fucking be possessed, or I'm going to throw these movies out right now." Just calm down. You're going to be okay. But I thought that was funny because 40 years later, 30 years later, people are still finding these movies and freaking out whenever Corey Feldman is freaking.
Right.
He's not possessed.
Well, wait till you watch the next one.
Right. Oh yeah. I was like, the next one might be weird, but wait, go on, keep going to 6, and you'll be good. That is a good sequence you were talking about, and Tyrone even says, "I love the time of day in that part."
Mm-hmm. Oh, let me tell you how many times it took us to get this scene right. We ran out of daylight constantly. We would always get towards the end and never get the ending shots. We'd be like, well, we got to get everything else to make it continuity right. And so we always thought we could race ourselves. When we finally got it on a 2-day weekend, we went back and sort of solved it. Again, on the Wump Stomp Films page, there's a how we made that scene. Not like necessarily we laid it out, but you'll see the final cut I did before we ended it, or how we finished it, how we put those shots together to be like, these are the shots we need. So everybody knows now when we go up there, you know what you're setting up for. And we finally got it. And then we shot this scene the same night that we finished it. There are mice crawling all over those branches. It was gross. And I'm in there holding a camera. I think I might be holding the camera here. JD, the other DP, was holding the camera in the scene. We were all grossed out.
That would do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't blame you for that.
There's an
Now-
original. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, you've mentioned Forest Green and you've mentioned Crystal Lake and how one is deeper than the other. Forest Green is more out front and kind of for the public.
Mm-hmm.
It almost seems like in your head, at least, you have a complete map of where all the pieces of the camp are.
Mm-hmm.
Packanack included, Higgins Haven.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
Yeah, that's sort of like if you did like one of those like nuclear, like if you look at like from impact zone, like Crystal Lake is at the center of that zone. And if you go out in the ring of layers, those other places are there. And it sort of like moves away from the camp, like Packanack's first, then Higgins Haven's next, and the Jarvis house. It's like after the events in part 2, Tommy was driven away from the camp and, from Packanack and driven deeper towards like the town. And then in, final chapter, he's working his way back from the center of town, which is, ways away, but works his way back to the Jarvis house. So if you read the Never Heckle and script, which if you've ever purchased anything through one of our Indiegogos, you get a downloadable script. And on the last page, or one of the last pages, we have a letter from Rick Colon. And that was our Easter egg to say that we got Vinny to come back and be Rick. Because this was before we ever announced that we had him. That he wanted certain properties shut down because of their sort of, they're near Camp Crystal Lake. And he doesn't want any activity over there. He doesn't want people messing around. That's the formation of the Wessex County National Forest, and how the purpose that serves. So those red lines that are that are on that map, like that's in the script. You'll kind of see that stuff, or at least understand what that is a little bit more. And that the last thing that he wants in this letter that he's written to the mayor, it's a layer about complaining about changing the name back to Crystal Lake. He thinks it's a bad idea. And he also doesn't like the fact that like all these properties still exist, and he wants to like sort of get rid of them. And he can get rid of 3 of them, but he can't get rid of the Jarvis house because there's still a resident there, and he wants to evict that resident. But you understand that he never really does. And so you kind of see like all these things we're setting up, and like it's really for the nerds. It's really for the nerds.
We're all nerds when it comes to this.
Yeah,
franchise,
and so that's sort of like this sequence is definitely inspired by the game. Or at least it kind of became. I think we filmed all this and did all this before the game had come out. But when I watched it again, I was like, "This feels like you're playing the game because you're hiding and Jason's walking around the outside." And this is sort of like based on nightmares that I had. That I used to hide in my house and think that Jason would walk by the window, like in part 6, and it was just petrified of that. So I try to work a lot of those things into this film and all the films. Really, they're all sort of nightmares I've had of Jason.
As long as Kyle doesn't start teabagging him as soon as he gets knocked down. I'll be all right.
He starts dancing. Right. Give him in the old Chad.
Oh, man.
This sequence was born out of we don't kill anybody. I need more gore. Like, what's an excuse? It's sort of like it came out of like, how do we bring up the effects in this scene? So like this is sort of tied to him tripping over the fence. Motivates him as a character, but also gives us this great scene where Kelsey Burke built this. I mean, he's actually putting a needle through a leg prosthetic on his actual leg. So if he messes up, that's going into his leg. But Jess Bennett showed him how to do it. It looks really real. There's like one of the shots, like we have him like pulling the skin. I think it's right here. The skin gets pulled. And you go, making people swim in their seats. Yeah, so that was definitely a. It's funny. I mean, this scene could have been 10 minutes long if we watched him do the whole thing. But we chopped it right up and kind of got into this. And then it was funny because it was like, how are you going to cut from that to this? I was like, do the jacket zip. And no one believed me. They're all like, it's not going to, what do you mean you're going to cut on the jacket zip? I'm like, trust me, it's going to be a great audio cut and it will bring us right into the next scene. And we did it and it worked. And I was just like, see? I was like, jacket zips. It's like they're a cut point. Because I most of my background's in editing or came from editing when I came out of school, so I still have a few tricks up my sleeve that I like to use.
Nice.
This is one of the most dynamic shots in the film. This oneer that's coming up, where we had it on a Steadicam, and we do a complete 360.
Yes.
To another 180. So we never
Where
cut.
Kyle
So this,
disappears.
I call this shot the magic trick because it's kind of like, or like hide and seek. It's like first you show the magician and then you show the stage again and then he's disappeared. Where is the magician gone? And so it opens up us to the next sequence to be like, okay, in all those places, is he under a table? You know, where's he go? And obviously we show the audience, but I just thought it was a nice sort of, you know, chance to show Jason and how loud his footsteps are.
This scene reminded me
the
of
loudest scene. Yeah, the loudest scene. I always cringe and was like, God, I wish we caught that.
it reminds me of Richard Brooker tearing up the barn a little bit too.
Yeah, and definitely
Barn
that, and then sort of like this gag's been done a million times, but it was about just doing it right. And honestly, it sells it right there.
Yep.
That shot,
Good one, man.
JD came up with that shot, that angle, because I was in another angle. I was on the front of his face, and that was a lot better because it almost looks like it hits him in the head. And it actually makes that shot work, and JD really saved that gag because before it was kind of lame, I'll admit. We were trying to make it impactful, and it was one of the things that when we did reshoots, we did a pickup of that. Just that knife coming in, just to make it more impactful. Of course, yes. Of course, hey, we don't have kills, but you know what? Let's do a table slam. We can afford
Let's
that.
do a table slam.
The poor.
He's going to be featured on WrestleMania this year.
Oh, God, stop the match.
The stunt team killed like 3 like prop knives, like chopping out the middle of that table so it would break. They had to replace all like the knives that we had for Jason that we were going to hang up, and actually we never ended up using. But that's usually the way it goes sometimes. You have an idea and you're like, wait, I have no spot for this actually. It doesn't help the story, and I have no place for it on the wall. It makes no sense.
How long did they have to practice the fight scenes for this?
We
film?
did 2 weeks of rehearsals, and then we rehearsed on set. So Jessica took them to a stunt facility. There's like a barn, like a stunt barn, you know, in West LA, or like in the Valley, and we walked through it. It's in the behind the scenes too. You can kind of see some of it that we did.
Right.
And worked it out there, and then we would come back during the day. So we would do daytime walkthroughs. So everyone would show up at like 3 in the afternoon, and we would walk through this entire sequence, and we would walk through every single camera angle. And during those walkthroughs is when we determined where lights were going to be. We adjusted angles to know that like, oh, we got to set up here, so we got to shift our angle here, or this doesn't look good, or that doesn't look good. We would fix all those mistakes in the daylight. But by the time the lights were up and running, and you know, right now it's like probably 1, 2 in the morning. It's got to be 40 degrees out. We're all freezing our asses off. You know, you got to move fast, and you can't be out there playing a guessing game and making people freeze to death. So it took a lot of planning to get that. But it was a combination of them rehearsing offsite, us going up there on days with just like this sequence, for example. I had a PA do this whole sequence during the day on a day that we just went up on a weekend to go build stuff. That way I could show it to my DPs and be like, hey, here's the rough camera layout. Like, this is what I want to recreate on set. They would watch those cuts, and then when they got up there, we had a better plan in place.
Nice.
And we solved a few different things to kind of go from there. This is some clever cutting to get around him taking forever with this stuff. It's sort of like that first shot, I was like, I want to cut out of this, like grab it. But then I realized, like, no, that's a good thing. Like, the audience is going to be like, grab it, like, go, what are you doing? But he knows he's not going to get far. He's trying to take the beast down, lure him in.
Now, we just saw Jason unmasked in the previous scene. What was your inspiration behind that look?
I wanted it to just feel like dead, like deader than dead. No eyes, rotted. You know, we worked in some of like the scars and things like that. Hiding some of the face, letting some of the darkness in the face, let your mind fill in maybe what you think you see. And sort of like, you know, in Friday films, there's usually one good face reveal, and it can either make or break a movie. So if we're going to do it, let's do it to a point where we wanted people to say, like, wait, how did a fan film make a face that good? And that was a goal before, like, we had Tom. You know what I mean? It was like we were trying to make this a great film, like, before we even had that ace in the hole. So that was also another plan that we always had. We just had to execute it right. And that took some ingenuity by Kelsey to kind of design that. It's not a full head mold. It's literally the same cowl I wore all film, but we placed it into the cowl and molded it into the cowl. So it's built on top of it and it blends both things. So the continuity was there, and she did a hell of a job. Nice. She got a lot of compliments on it from a lot of like really big artists who saw her work. So that was really kudos to her and everything that she does in this film, especially the head crush that's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely scary though. I mean, for Jason, it's fucking one of the best.
Yeah, and what we didn't want was part 8, and we did, even part 7 to a degree, where he's a little bucktoothy. And kind of like, he looks a little muppety in a way, and he's sort of. It's not like 6 is scary to me, 4 is scary to me. Those are the 2 scariest, 6 and 4.
Yeah.
And part 3 is okay. Part 2 is all right. Not like actually like if I'm like have to rank them, you know what I mean? Like those, like part 4 and part 6 are the ones that really freaked me out.
Oh yeah.
And then just imagining what could be under there. So I kind of just went based on those and kind of worked my way off. But obviously we worked with what was there. My face was molded, so it has to work with my facial features. So again, like with the camp, I don't look like Ted White, I don't look like CJ Graham, but our world has its own design, and we're proud of it. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of something that we wanted to put on display. Everyone's favorite dissolve. Nice dissolve.
two great shots there when he pulls the axe out and it's dripping the blood, and then Kyle is behind it, and then the moon in the eye. Yes, of course.
Those were nice. Those were like, when you sit back and edit, and you have those moments on, and you're like, oh, it used to just be a vision in my head. Now it's real. Like, it's so cool. This is Flagstaff, Arizona, Lake Mary. We got out of California to avoid having to pay a scuba diver $1,000 every 2 days to come out and stand there and watch me hide in knee-deep water so I don't drown. Literally just standing on the shore. But yeah, that's sometimes you just gotta avoid that stuff. Like, they wouldn't let us shoot on any shoreline anywhere, and we just drove out to Flagstaff and did this literally on our own. Nobody said it. 50 yards down the beach, there's people fishing. And they're like looking over, like, what the hell are they doing over there?
I was wondering to ask if he was fucking with the people fishing in full costume.
They thought it was hilarious.
Hey there.
Now, I know you're not a fan of the humor here, but I appreciate it as a fan of mixing in humor and horror.
Yeah, I know. It's a little goofy. Even I'm kind of like, I could have done this a little bit more serious. Maybe in the Never Hike Alone 2, when we actually go through the scene a little bit, things might get better. Because this scene is going to appear in Never Hike Alone 2, but we're not going to try to weave in the old one with the new one. We're just going to refilm it. But it's going to be more from Tommy's perspective the entire time. Mm-hmm. So in that scene, like, while this is happening, you're going to be where Tommy is right now. And he's going to come back to this kind of moment. So we don't see this. We see how they find Kyle, and then sort of like what prompts Tommy to be sort of down the road right now. And then he comes back to find this, and then we go into our sequence, and we're actually going to, even when I was penning it, I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to change some of these lines, and I'm going to make it better. Now that we've had time to think about it, and everybody sort of complains about this scene anyway, like, why not take a chance to be like, hey, this is the upgraded movie, and here are the answers to your questions. But this is really what drove it, was this scene. Like, I wanted to make this happen, and honestly, like, this is like a tenth of what I had in my head about what I wanted this to look like. It was just, we used the resources and time that we had to do what we did. But I really wanted like a big spotlight down and like really magical forest, like really kind of out there, like It Follows, like oddball, like just trippy drug sequence. But we just sort of shot what we shot because we were cruising to get these shots, and it was tough. This was a tough 2 days. This was 2 days to shoot all this stuff.
So these two off-screen deaths that we have here might be on screen and Never Hike Alone 2?
They're on screen.
Yeah.
So we'll see sort of, one of them's on screen and one of them happens like half on screen, but the results are shown on screen type thing. I won't kind of spoil, but it's from the camera angle. It's a cool camera angle. And yeah, so we see Tommy fight Jason. We see the fight. that's sort of why we're redoing this, because we want to show like what happened to Tommy, and then the fight continues.
Yes.
And so like that's sort of like the extra bit, like it's sort of the bonus ending to this is that like, yeah, they drive off, but it's not like Tommy's driving back to town right now. Like he's just trying to give himself enough distance to actually defend an attack. So what we get is like a nice kind of final battle between Tommy and Jason. That's a real face-off. You know, kind of like Tommy and I mean, kind of like Jason and Kyle when they stand off on the porch and he lifts up the shovel, you know, and Jason lifts up his machete. Well, Tommy's got a shotgun, so it's gonna be interesting, to say the least. But I've been dying to make that sequence for 3-4 years now, and I make Jess Bennett roll her eyes every time I tell her what I want to do. I'm like, well, you gotta get that. You got a wire pull. We got a rig going.
You just make it happen.
We just make it happen, and we're gonna make it look good. And it's gonna bring Jason to a whole new level of scary, and it really sets up for like the oncoming slaughter that's going to be coming to town now that the cat's out of the bag. I mean, the whole point of Never Hike Alone and the ending of Never Hike Alone is sort of like this is the break of the seal. Like Pandora's box is now open, and Jason.
Somebody survived.
Somebody survived, exactly.
And may even have video evidence if he's still got his camera.
Exactly, and so Jason can't hide anymore. Jason knows that he can't turn back. There's no covering this up. Like the evidence is all over camp. You know what I mean? Like by the time he gets back to camp, he doesn't have enough time to clean up after all that shit. Like something happened, and he's sort of in kamikaze mode. Honestly, that's the way I saw it. That rage Jason is now returned. This building rage, like sad Jason is in these 3 movies. And Rage Jason is sort of in this scene too. But in the next kind of installments, that's what happens, is that we're full on Rage Jason the entire time, and he's back to the Jason we know and remember, and it feels sort of like this great arc for him, rather than being like, you know, One Note Jones, just being like, oh, there's people, I'm going to just start stabbing. You know what I mean? Like, here we go. There's another kill scene. It's like you feel him being drawn by the rage. You feel him being drawn to the center of camp, murdering people on the way, taking out his anger. And it's like, imagine the scene, like, because you know it's going to happen, where like he gets to town and he sees Kyle. You know what I mean? He's like, you son of a bitch. Like, there you are. I'm coming for you.
I've been looking for you.
I've been looking for you. I'm like, I'm going to get my revenge. And so, you know, that's going to be a great hospital sequence. You know, as everything kind of converges into the hospital, we have our Friday the 13th meets Halloween 2. And that's a big, you know, that's going to be another part that I've been waiting to film. Sort of where we're at right now is we're trying to hunt down now what hospital we're going to film at. And then once we have that answer, we kind of have the biggest piece of the puzzle figured out. And all like the little pieces mostly have been figured out as it is. Like, and the things that are left to figure out after that are like really minuscule. You know, really easy stuff to kind of put together over a weekend. So once we figure out our hospital stuff, we're ready to go. And we're going to start fundraising and kind of going from there. But for now, the story leaves off here.
Right. Now, I've heard you say something about this is called the Ghost Cut, and then once you have the remaining 3 or 4 other pieces done, that's going to be called the Jarvis story or something?
No, so you call it the Jarvis Cut.
Jarvis Cut?
I think it's actually just going to be the complete cut, the master cut or something. So this is kind of a preview. This is actual lines from Never Hike Alone 2.
That's what I'm afraid of.
So kind of setting up like their rivalry, the fact that like Tommy says there's a storm coming and Rick says that's what he's afraid of, but the thing that he's afraid of is Tommy, him being the storm. And so that's sort of kind of there. And I'll spoil something for you guys right now. After kind of thinking about it, since we've all had a year to kind of collect our thoughts, you know, COVID put us behind schedule big time. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I think our goal is no longer to make a 3-part series. We're just going to go and make the sequel, Never Hike Alone 2, the way it was originally intended, the way it was originally written. And instead of trying to raise like $50,000 to $75,000 per one, we're going to go for like $250,000, $300,000 and do a feature film fundraiser and see if we can do it. Ooh. But and we're inspired because we've had over 300. I think we had over 3,300 backers on this one.
Damn.
3,300 names on that list. That's a lot of damage. Everybody giving $20, and a lot of people gave more. We think we're capable of 5,000, 10,000, and we know that there are 10,000 Friday the 13th fans in the world that all have $20 burning a hole in their pocket, or $30 or something. That if we can kind of, I don't know. I think we as fans have to have an honest conversation in the fall, because I don't think there's no end in sight to the lawsuit. It doesn't look like Sean's going to give up anytime soon. He has no intention of giving up. Even if it settles against him, he's going to appeal again, and he's going to keep appealing until it's all over there. So if you want something, then maybe it's time to sort of like give us a fair shot and be like, no longer are we going to piecemeal this thing together. This is what we need. We're scaling back as it is. You know what I mean? But if we can raise this, we can get it done, and we can shoot it, and we can finalize this story. Not only to finalize the story of Never Hike Alone, but finalize sort of the story of Friday the 13th, and saying this is the ending we always wanted and never got. And here's a way that we could all kind of like tip our cap to this sort of story branch of Tommy and the camp and Jason, and sort of have like something that feels a little bit better than Jason Goes to Hell, something that feels a little bit better than Jason X, something that feels a little bit better than Jason Takes Manhattan, something that makes you go like, okay, Jason can rest. Maybe he's not done forever.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not done forever.
Right.
But if Jason's going to demise, that like this is now, you feel like there's something a little bit more than him just being taken down at the end of the movie. There's something emotional to it, and that's what I'm really kind of like. That's why I'm holding on to the story so tight, because it's so emotional, and it's so like, I think when people see it, it's gonna like, I think grown men will cry, and I think we'll all get it to a certain degree, and we'll be able to say our piece, and then we'll get our wink at the end, and the story will move on. And at that point, I don't think we'll ever be able to make another Never Hike Alone after that. But future conventions, more things like that as this time goes by. Who knows? We can do something animated. But I could always just sit there and like gather everybody around at a convention and be like, you want to hear the story about how it continues? And just do a campfire tale and tell everybody how this is supposed to go. So, so we're probably going to aim, to raise that much money. I don't think we're going to run into any issues with getting sued. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think we just need to be smart logistics. And we need to make sure the money's spent wisely, because the bigger the film, the mistakes get bigger. So there is no coming back from like, well, we got to make up 20 grand. You know what I mean? It's like, now if we got to make up 20 grand, we're ruined. So we sort of have to say like, how are we going to fundraise? Because we're obviously going to, whatever we raise $300,000. Indiegogo is getting $30,000, 10%. So we're going to lose that money. And then if we raise it this year, taxes and all these different things. So there's a lot of things to sort of like look at it in the boring side, like logistically, when is the best time to raise money? When is the best time to start fundraising? But we might sort of break up the campaign into two, because we want to put the Ghost Cut on Blu-ray. We think we can film put some new features on there, some new shorts that we're doing this year, and we can also put new interviews. One of the things we were thinking about doing was putting a perk where we'll do 2 sections of commentary, where 4 or 5 fans can get together on a track, and they can pay to be on the track for the commentary. And 4 fans can talk about their experience watching the Ghost Cut and what they think about it, and sort of like just sell off like a slot. You know what I mean? Like we're trying to think of fun ways that like, how do we get more fans on the disc? You know what I mean? Maybe we do like a new behind the scenes where instead of, you get to be in the behind the scenes, you'll get an interview. We'll interview you about like, what was your experience with Never Hike Alone? Because we want to start telling the story about like, what is going on with the fan base right now? What is this? And so we can kind of build sort of a documentary out of it, and that be the original piece that nobody's ever seen before. And that becomes the extra kind of like, this is why you're buying this disc. And then once we do Never Hike Alone 2, which will be its own movie, we'll probably find a way to take that Ghost Cut disc that has the Ghost Cut on it, and that will be a dual disc with the Never Hike Alone 2, and that will be your sort of like master disc or final copy for that. So
nice.
Thinking about how to do that, or if we're going to do like the original cut of just Never Hike Alone 2, and then on the second disc would be like the master cut if you want to watch the director's cut of like everything cut together with all the scenes woven in, the 6-hour cut, whatever it comes out to be, we'll do the Snyder cut, and then we can have the Watchmen Ultimate Edition.
Nice.
Version of Never Hike Alone, but there's probably there's probably 1,000 different ways to cut this thing together after that. But I think Never Hike Alone 2 is going to stand up on its own. I don't think people are really going to like. I think you could put Disappear and Never Hike in the Snow on it. I don't know how much Never Hike Alone I would put in there because Never Hike Alone gets its own story through Never Hike Alone 2. Mm-hmm. Andrew's sort of this character that's popping up in the background in some scenes and things. Where you kind of see him making his journey, and you know where he is on his journey because you watch the other movie. But we kind of see other parts of that journey that we haven't seen before, which is pretty cool. So we found a way to keep it interesting, even though we're in the same time frame, that we're showing you what you didn't see and what we couldn't show you because we didn't have the budget.
Man, I'm just saying your previous efforts, I think, will justify what you're going to do with this new one. I think your name is out there now. I think it's going to be. I think people are going to come ready, man, for this. They want to see this story.
I think this is what people wanted.
What you're asking
Never Hike in the Snow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people were ready to do Never Hike Alone 2, and we're like, but we have Never Hike in the Snow, and they were like, I guess.
And what was the main complaint that you heard about Never Hike in the Snow? It was too fucking short.
Yeah, and at the same time, we're coming out from the point like we don't want to get sued. We're supposed to be doing 25-minute episodes, but we're learning as we go to sort of like because there's no rules. I mean, there are rules, but there are no rules. If that makes sense, I want to do a video on it. Like I'm going to put it on the Womstomp page, being like, here are the rules as we've discovered them. This is like basically we've looked at every single rule list we could find on the internet. These are the ones that always show up. These are the ones that make the most sense. And here are like some of the legal gray areas because it's like these are just sort of suggestions. They're not necessarily like follow the law or else the cease and desist is coming because we broke most of the laws on the first Never Hike Alone.
Dude, that would be very helpful to filmmakers or just filmmakers in general.
Yeah, considering everything else on the page is free, we might as well put something that can make some money. I mean, and it would help. You know what I mean? Like it would start to be this thing where I really. Looking after Never Hike Alone, I think that there's a future for Womstomp Films to continue to create genre content. I think fan-funded stuff, us raising original budgets, doing those things. We want to tell other original stories. We want to make other feature films. We just recognize that this is our ticket. This is the thing that put us on the map. And it's something that we love and it's something that we're passionate about. And to have the opportunity to be able to finish it will be the cream on top. And I think that we sort of like doubted it again, being like, well, lawsuit will get up and then we'll kind of be old news. And the lawsuit is never going to let up. So it's like, well, if we got the reins, let's pull back and rear this puppy and like head into the hills and see if we can get this thing done. Let's climb the mountain and finish this climb. And so, we're like, screw it. Let's raise all the money now. Break it up like we did before. We'll shoot it all summer. Like we'll do this, like all the hospital stuff, we'll shoot that one go. All the stuff that takes place at location X, we'll shoot there. Everything at location Y, we'll go shoot there. And if it's not the same every other weekend, we'll do it 1 month at a time. And we'll watch our continuity and we'll do all these things. But if we shoot out each location, it also allows us to build it as we go and then go, you know what, maybe we go back to the location, we get this shot, we get that shot, and build it like we kind of did before and give ourselves the leeway to go and make it good. But since all of our sets will be places that exist and not things that are going to be built and then like broken back down, we'll be able to go and just shoot there, which will be really nice. And so anytime we need to do pickups, it will be like the old camp. And so we'll be shooting at the old camp, we'll be shooting at the Flagstaff camp, we'll be shooting at a third camp that we used in Never Hike in the Snow for some of the other scenes. It's sort of like, I would say that that's the glue that's holding the two camps together, is this camp that we actually can stay at and house people. And there's a whole section of camp that they don't have people in most of the year. Nice. We can use that as sort of like where the cabins meet. And then you can go into the next part of the camp, which is the Big Bear camp, which is our famous one. And that's how Andrew, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but like when they go back in there, it's sort of like they have to follow Andrew's old path and find their way back to Jason's lair and sort of put the maze back together of like from the footage and all that stuff of like, how did you get, he's like, I don't know, I was just wandering around, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know the camp. Like, I was just walking around, going where my gut told me. And that's the great thing about Kyle's character is he's kind of like as resourceful as he is, he's kind of kind of a dummy. Like, he kind of just follows his gut, and like, and I mean, I'm not saying that's like Andrew. I think it's like both of us. Like, we're both kind of like haphazardly, like, kind of wander our way into things sometimes. So we want to bring that playfulness to thing, and there's going to be like that comedy between, you know, Andrew and, you know, Tommy, who's so serious, and like Kyle, who's like not really like gun ho as Tommy is to go like save the day. He's kind of like, I don't really want to do this.
I survived my movie. Let me out of here.
Yeah, I survived my movie. I'm not coming back for the sequel. And but I think that like, but it's great. Everybody has great character arcs. Like, you know, Kyle has to learn that like he's the one who he's sort of Tommy in part 6. Like, he unleashed him from the dead. It's your fault. Like, all these deaths are on you because you felt the need to take a shortcut. If you didn't survive, if you would have just died, there would be like 20 more people alive right now. But hey, can't do anything about it now except help me. And, you know, and that's sort of like, you know, that's what motivates Tommy. I think that there's lots of cool things with Tommy that we're going to see. I've really been working on the opening scenes. Because obviously those are the first things we want to tackle. The opening scene is so cool. It takes it from, I mean, it really is the difference between a fan film and a motion picture. A real, just like down to earth, like film. Like, you're watching a story. There's like the cinematic style of it, the way that we want to shoot it, the way the story unfolds, the character development. And a lot of the way that we're going to tie these two worlds together, it's just going to. It's the way it all weaves together is really cool. And I've been waiting to kind of build this side of it for a long time. And COVID, you know, put a stop to all that. And I'm just like foaming at the mouth to put it all together and be like, here's where it lands. Like, I don't want you to have to wait anymore. Like, I want you to see where it goes, and no more, you know, no more cliffhangers.
Right.
Like,
we're foaming to get to see it too, so we get it.
No, I get it.
One of the things we've always said is that's what puts you, and now that we've seen It's Me, Billy, even Dave McRae, you know, a step above, is you guys' stuff is pro, you know? And I'm not necessarily trying to knock the other fan film makers, but some of them need to maybe take a film course or read a book about filmmaking, you know, because some of it's just rough.
Well, I think that like that's the thing that we learn as filmmakers. Like, you gotta learn, like, and it's going to be the difference. And so it's like, where does your attention get put in your journey? Does your attention get put on the work? Does it get put on how can we get better at this? What are the techniques that make us good versus what are the techniques that are going to get us money, and what are the techniques that are going to get us fame? And I think that, like, if I had anything to nitpick about like the community, it's that like you can tell the difference between the films that, like, you know, the fans go out there with the right spirit. They're like, hey, we're not filmmakers, but we just want to do this. We want this opportunity. This is going to be a lot of fun. And people who are taking themselves like, and sort of being like, well, we can do what they did. And it's like, can you? Like, do you want that responsibility? Because I barely want that responsibility. Like, and we have access to like the best stuff in the world. And I think that like, it's sort of like, what is your reason behind doing it? Is it because you want to tell stories, or is it because you just want to play dress up? But you know, those films turn into sort of the more schlocky versions of Friday the 13th that do exist. You know, like they're more on that side of where the part 7s live, and where the part 8s live, and where the Jason X's live, or the part 5s. And like, you know, it's not as something that is well woven as a part 4, a part 6, or a part 2. The top 3 of the series, but
agree.
Agree. But
I would reverse them, but that's just me.
You know, whatever it is. But I mean, it's just one of those things where like, it also shows the diversity in the fandom, because not every Friday the 13th fan is foaming for character development. No one's going like, if they just develop the characters more, they're like, we want more blood on the boobies. Like, I want you to kill more boobies in the film. It's like, that's part of the thing. And it's like, give it to them. Like, do Jason versus boobies. Like, let's just do Jason versus boobies. And that's
I'm pretty sure there's a fan film out there already like that.
You know,
probably.
Well, there you go. There's a
I'm
scene.
sure there's a big piece of that pizza. I bet if that slice of pizza was in the box, you'd take a bite of it.
Oh, there you go. No, never hike alone too. Just have him run by the local strip club, take a few people out, and keep on heading towards.
That's what I'll do. I'll change one of the locations. I used to have a location where there were a bunch of people. Maybe I'll have them go by the strip club.
Does Crystal Lake have a strip club? Seriously, though.
Now I'm kind of inspired. I mean, where else would the likes of Axel's and Billy McCulley's go hang out other than the Crystal Lake Strip Club, which we need to come up with a good name. Like, so let's do this now. Let's have a pitch session. What is the name of the Crystal Lake Strip Club?
Oh my goodness. That's
Klitzel
Oh
Lake.
God. Oh,
Klitzel Lake. Well,
I don't know if that one's going to pass the board.
That one's rough. That one's bad.
What if something's a little bit more like obscure? If it was Tiny Sparrows.
Tiny Sparrows.
Tiny Sparrows. Let's go to Sparrows instead of like
just Sparrows.
Rhino,
Yeah.
the Peppermint Sparrow, like Sail Away, Tiny Sparrow from the first movie.
Yeah.
And try to, like,
Yeah.
there you go, Sparrows.
You mentioned you mentioned the one guy a second ago. You could go with like no, the other one. McCulley, yeah.
Billy McCulley?
Billy's. Yeah. Or go with Lana's Love Lounge or something like that.
Lana's Love Lounge. Yeah, Lana's.
That'd
be a good one. See?
I think Ralph's. Ralph's. That's where I'm at right now.
I think right now Lana's is in Lana's Lounge. You know what I mean? That seems right. And see, so this is sort of like a look behind the scenes between this is how we come up with stuff. We sit around and say, all right, we need to come up with a name for this. Everybody go. Start throwing things in the hat. And then you all just try to start like, somebody gets something that sort of works and somebody bounces off that. And it's like that. This is filmmaking. And that's really what it comes down to. And as long as you're having fun and you're doing that, that's sort of like, as long as the spirit's there, that's a good part of it. And then it just comes down to the execution. It's like, now, do I choose to like set 10 scenes at Lana's Lounge and like have nothing to do with the film? Or do I just have it as a background thing that's kind of funny if you look close enough and you go, oh, you see that? Okay, now move on. Enough of that.
But think of how many Indiegogo contributors you could get as extras in that scene because there's going to be topless women all over the place.
So
they're going to pony up the extra bucks for that.
But I'm going to sell out my movie. So a bunch of people who can't act are going to come into my movie and not act and stand around in a scene that doesn't belong in the movie just so they could say they were in the movie. I get how that could be a great experience for them, but how about the other people that have to watch the movie? Yeah. So as much as people love to sell roles in films, I think it's one of the biggest mistakes you can do because, one, it's illegal. If you have a SAG film, you can't sell your roles. You can't take a SAG actor's role and sell it to somebody. That's actually illegal. And second of all, why wouldn't you want an actor in that role? But again, what type of movie are you trying to make? And Never Hike Alone, we're taking it seriously. We're trying to make real cinema. We're out here trying to like not compete with the films, but we're trying to compete with ourselves as filmmakers. And then other people, it's sort of a party. The movie itself is a party. It's not going to take itself seriously. It's going to go all over the place. The story's probably going to be there. There's going to be a bunch of great kills. People are going to die brutally. It's not going to make much sense, but everybody on the film had a great time. Maybe the people who paid for it had a great time watching it. It's different strokes for different folks. And I think that's sort of where we sort of draw a line on ours is most of the films that like we're associated with, we take that approach like, no, we're telling a story.
Right.
We're going to do good cinematography. We're going to fix
it. And honestly, I appreciate that. Because that's always been one of my major complaints is the acting in some of the fan films.
I mean,
you and your integrity have to stand up.
It depends on like I said, like it's a taste thing. I mean, some people love the hammy stuff. I mean, I put hammy stuff in Never Hike Alone because I was like, this is the crowd for it. I'm going to pay homage to this stuff. And honestly, retrospective, I was like, it bit me in the ass. I had this serious film, and then I came in with this yuck fest, and I was just like, I kind of like stepped on my own nuts, and I was just like, damn it. I was like, but this is what I shot, and I got to stand by it. And I was like, and that was the direction, and that's what I did, and I executed it. And so, I mean, I think that as a filmmaker, we always look back and go, I wish I could have done that again. And so what am I doing? I'm doing the film again in Never Hike Alone 2. Be like, no, let's do the scene the way it should have been done. What we can say is that's just Kyle's drug-induced sort of recollection of that scene. Here's what really happened. People actually had real things to say. It's not just in dope land.
let me hit a couple of comments here real quick, and then I've got a couple more questions for you, and then we'll probably wrap this up. But Chris Fay says, quote, "This was in my head for years. Now it actually exists," end quote, is one of the greatest feelings ever. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that a while back about a certain scene that you had been thinking about.
The moon, the moon.
Moonshot.
Yeah. And Faze is a writer, and he's working on some other projects, so we know he kind of feels how that works. And then Lorena says, "That was great. I've been tempted to put the Bruce Banner hitchhiking music in at the end. Glad you didn't." Well, Jason would have had to pick up a suitcase or a duffel bag at least and walk down the road, though.
Well,
she
I want to do a
excellent
bunch of
job
silly
and fascinating comments.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a great promo.
Yeah, we want to do a bunch of silly stuff. Another preview on Jason Rising. We did cut like a few scenes out of the movie. I kind of came in at the end with like the strong hand. I was like, okay, these are the scenes that don't work, and they work as scenes, but they just don't work in the movie. And so we kept like the joke on Jason Rising was like, oh, now it's a 30-minute movie. Oh, now it's a 20-minute movie. Oh, now it's a 15-minute. Oh, now it's a 30-second ad that plays before the movie. Every time we made a cut, it went down. But I mean, the first time I sat in the booth with them, like to lock the cut, it was at 57 minutes. When I was done, it was at 51. But the idea was we're going to go back in and massage some of the stuff because some of the scenes need to work still. And we put 3 or 4 minutes back into the film. So now it's at 54 minutes or something like that, or 53 minutes. And that was going back in and be like, oh, you know what? That thing we cut out, it's better over here. Or, oh, that piece, like now, it's like once you kind of clear the shit out of the way and you're like, this is how it connects. Here's your story threads. Now what's missing? And you can go back in and add it back in. But yeah, that was pretty funny to share the joke of now you know what we're doing behind the scenes when we're messaging each other like, oh, I got an idea, now it's a 10-second ad.
Well, you mentioned you've been calling the upcoming sequel just Never Hike Alone 2. Mm-hmm. Is it still going to be called Never Hike Again, or is that the new
to be determined
title? To be determined?
Some people want it to still be The Final Hike. I mean, could just call it Never Hike Again, just on its own. Mm-hmm. But honestly, God, just calling it Never Hike Alone 2 just seems to have that magical ring to it. Doesn't it? It's really like, that's what people want. People don't want something else. They want Never Hike Alone 2.
That's how the Fridays went. It was Friday Part 2, Part 3, Part 4. Yes. So I'm bringing back the big 2. I think we're going to design a nice 2, Never Hike Alone, work it into the logo. That's what it's going to be. And the chapters are Never Hike Again, Jason Takes Crystal Lake, and The Final Hike, which is basically like how we break it down on our storyboard. You know what I mean? Like we Act 1, this is our name for it, and like we come up with little names for the scenes. And we write them on cards and we post them up. And that's how I came up with those names, because those are the names of the chapters. Never Hike in the Snow was the name of the chapter, was the prologue. Right. And I'm not saying we're going to put cards in between each of the chapters, but sort of that's the inspiration behind each scene. So maybe you'll probably see those names pop up in the chapters, because we'll definitely do a chapter menu for Never Hike. We didn't do one for Never Hike in the Snow. We were like, what's the point of a chapter menu on a 25-minute film? Yeah. We just hit the skips and you'll know where you're going. But for that one, we'll have the chapter menu and we'll name the chapters and stuff like that. So we'll definitely have that. But I'm excited, and I think this is going to be a big challenge, but this is what we've been training for. This is now we're at Rocky IV stage right here. I'm fighting the Russian. I got to go train in the mountains. I'm gonna be carrying logs up hills. It's gonna be great. Yeah, seriously, man. I mean, having this story. I mean, it's with that lawsuit. You're right. It's never gonna go away. So everyone that's starving for some new Friday content, I mean, you're the source, bro. Like it or not. I mean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's fans across the board. I mean, the guys at Jason Rising, the other other fan films have this opportunity, and really, it's like, again, it's what type of fan film do you want to be? If you just want to go out and have fun, go out and have fun, but don't like turn around and expect people to like pay for your autograph.
I would say watching your making of video of Never Hike Alone would be an ultimate deterrent. If you didn't want to get involved that deep into something, because you see what kind of fucking pain you guys went through to get it done and get it on film.
And
the cosplayers aren't gonna, you know what I'm saying, they're not gonna go that deep. So I would say watch that. And
Yeah, definitely set your sights. Like, don't tell people, oh, like, you know, they look at what we did and they go, well, we can make a feat. Like, well, let's make a feature. At $50,000, you can totally make a feature. It's like, you might be able to, but like, how good is it going to look? But it's, again, it's like, what are you trying to create? And, you know, are you ready for the responsibility? And sometimes I sit down and I talk to filmmakers. I talk to a lot of filmmakers. I usually end up having a Zoom with almost every single fan filmmaker. And I can tell in my meeting how far they're going to get. And it's not a judgment. It's just sort of like, I feel like they're at this point in their career. And if they veer off, let's try to set them on a path and being like, here's the target you should aim for. By all means, prove me wrong. But I don't think I've been proven wrong yet. And the people who have stuck to their path have done well. And the people who haven't stuck to their path either haven't made their movie or they didn't get what they wanted out of the experience. And sometimes the sun's a little too bright and want to, you know, even me, I mean, I did it to myself and I'm trying to warn everybody. I'm like, don't go into the light, like keep a good distance from the light and you'll have a clear conscience and you'll be able to kind of like be happy with what you have versus, trying to go too deep into it because it's a hole you might not be able to get out of and you might not be able to finish. And then you might have a bunch of upset fans. And we know that that's a risk kind of doing what we're doing. That's why that's why it's taking so much time. Like, we're not saying like, oh, you know, I wrote the script, I'm ready to go, let's just go do it. It's like, no, okay. Yeah. You know, we've had time to look at it, but we haven't had time to kick the tires. I haven't had time to go look at sets and be like, can I put breakaway glass in here? Can I bust through a wall over here? Can I build something over here? How much is it going to cost to build this? What's it to rent this? What's the daily rate? How many films, you know, do I have all the scenes that I need? All the rooms that I need? Can I repurpose a room? We need to do that due diligence. It's going to get the same treatment that Never Hike Alone did. And by getting that, that's how it's going to end up being a good film. And I think that, you know, if I have ever any advice for everybody, and my advice is always the same, is don't rush. Yeah. You know, like James a couple months ago, you know, he set a release date a long time ago. And because he thought he was going to be able to film in a certain window and he missed that window. And he was like, I want to honor the date. I want to honor the date. I'm like, why? Who's putting the gun to your, like, you're the guy, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, I'm going to get him. You know what I mean? Like you're doing it. It's like, if you explain to people that, hey, we didn't get the scene that we needed, we're going to push it back again. They'll forgive you when the movie's better than what you would have released on that other day, which would have been incomplete and looked like shit. So, you know, buy yourself the time and explain to people what's going on. It's like, we're not studios. We don't have endless money. They know that you're working with limitations. And so fans have to be that way. You know, we have to have the pressure to get things done. But at the same time, it's like, do it right. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be happier. It might take a little bit longer. You know, I always tell it to people like we're on set. I'm like, it might suck right now, but you're not going to worry about this when you're standing on a stage 6 months, a year from now, showing everybody your film. You know, you took your lumps, but you pushed through it and you found a way around it. You know, you found a way over it or through it. You know, you didn't just settle. I think that that's where I get the most upset with some of the people, not that I work with, but like, that's how you get me upset, is when you're sitting there, you're like, well, it is what it is. Or like, I'm just going to settle for it. Or if I don't want to put the work in to go do it, or we can get away. It's like, no, it's like, if you want to do it, let's go drive out and get that thing and do this. Like, go to the place. Let's go to the thing. Like, I'm willing to go down this rabbit hole with you. And I get it. Like, a lot of people get tired and you get sick of doing it. Like, funny enough, I never got sick of driving out to the camp. In fact, I always look forward to driving back. I always hated the drive home. Like, yeah, that was always, I felt like I was driving away from like where I was supposed to be. And it's like, that's what I try to inspire. It's like, no, this is your break from reality. Like, put the time and effort, because when you watch it from now, like there's something we picked up in Jason Rising this weekend where we were like, there's a bunch of props buried under a tree, like on our set, like 4 towns over. That's like a 45-minute drive away. Do we really want to drive out there, dig this stuff out of the mud and get it in the shot? And they were kind of like, I think we can get, I was like, let's just go do it.
Do it.
Like what else are we doing today? Mm-hmm. Like, and the last time you guys had me out here, both times I've had to dig graves. So as long as we don't have to dig a grave, like, we're already in better position than we were before. So let's just go out and do it. And, you know, we went out and you know, pulled stuff out of the woods, built this mini set so we could get these inserts, and it looks 1,000 times better. It's like 2 of the coolest shots in the movie. And if we didn't get the due diligence to go get that stuff, it wouldn't have looked as good. You would have been able to be like, wait, this isn't the same set. Like, where are they? But what we did, it looks like the exact same set, and we get to say
afterwards.
That.
Yeah, and afterwards they probably said, yeah, it was worth it.
It's that, it's that spotter. You know what I mean? That's you're sort of like the spotter for your friends to be like, you got one more rep in you.
Yeah.
Like, don't give up now. Like, you can do another lap. You can run another 5 minutes. You can do another, like, you've got it. Do another round. Come on, let's go. Push yourself. And sometimes you need that because filmmaking is a soul-crushing and dream-killing process every step of the way. You know what I mean? Like, this beautiful, bright bulb of this movie that you have in your head is constantly just beat against the entire time. And your fight is to maintain that level of craftsmanship. And at the independent level, there are no safety nets. It's you and your team against the world, and it's like this modern day piratism. You know what I mean? Like, we're pirates on a ship out in the middle of the ocean with no map, and we got to figure it out and get to the other side of the world. And that journey doesn't always happen for people, and that's why it's always so key to like follow advice that you're given, take realistic goals, and really understand sort of what you're doing it for. And for the love of God, when you do it and you release it, don't charge anybody for your autograph because you made a fan film. It's the silliest thing I've ever heard. It's just, that's not the spirit of what we're doing.
Who's doing that?
I don't know. I'm not going to say anybody.
No.
But I just find it so, and maybe I could be wrong, because there's other cosplayers out there charging for their costume, and it helps do that stuff. And if you're taking the cosplay aspect, it's just sort of like, I find it disrespectful to go out as a fan and then try to put yourself above the fans. I always want to be, when I'm out there at the conventions, I'm there as a fan. I'm just lucky enough to have made something that everyone likes, and it's giving me the opportunity to introduce to other people. And my reward is getting to meet more fans and build my fan base for the original thing that I want to do, and the original things that I want to do, and the original things that I'm going to be in. That this is my stepping stone. I'll collect I'll collect money for signatures later when I do something that goes up on a big screen and I actually earn it. For right now, this is for us. This is for the fans. This is why we do it. Honestly, like, I'd rather not have 5,000 Blu-rays behind me that need to be shipped. This isn't what I asked for, but I'll do this. You know what I mean? This is my Rocky Hill.
Where's that PA now when you need it?
I know, right? Well, actually, I mean, usually my buddy Kyle's over, and he helps me out a lot with this stuff. So it's usually me and Kyle working pretty hard. Kyle Klein, who is in our BTS, he's the ginger,
Right.
And it's him and me. We sit out here, we fold and tape all these boxes. We have a good laugh. I sit here and I do, like, I have to process all the information on the computers and check people off the field and make sure the addresses are right, send them their email. And so he's behind me, like, packing the boxes and picking the labels and, like, labeling the boxes and organizing everything. And every now and then I'm like, wait, do you have, like, a Susan Strange? Oh, you do? Okay, good. I did print her. All right, that's good. He's like, wait, who's the last person you have? Oh, shit, I skipped Ralph. Oh, fuck. Okay, hold on. I got to get Ralph. And then, like, when he's here, it's really good because we check and balance. We make sure we don't miss everybody. And then we have the people who don't change their addresses. So these are getting returned to me. So here's $12 of shipping. Counting the beans. But
Damn it.
and then I got to email people and say, hey, you never updated your address. Where are you now? People don't see it. I get it. We've been doing this for 2 years. We've been waiting to send these things out. So life changes. And we just need to hunt these people down and get them their disc because we want them to have it. So if you haven't gotten your disc yet, don't worry about it. I still have a lot of names to go through. But that pile of boxes was twice as high 2 weeks ago. In fact, there's only one row of boxes now. There used to be two all the way to the ceiling. And now they've been adjusted into those. But basically, the shipping process is I just sit here and print labels, and I make like a stack like this, and then Kyle and I just pick from that. Like, it makes it so fast. I can sit here and just print labels for people who are just getting Blu-rays. It makes it pretty easy. And then anytime anyone gets a special order, I stop. I have to, like, piece together their order, put it in a bigger package, weigh it, and ship it. But for the most part, it's mostly single-case Blu-rays, so we can just pick them off the pile and just label them real fast, pack a bunch of boxes, and send them out. And that's when we make a lot of headway. It's when we get into, like, the camper packs. Like, right now we're starting to get into the final call. So now there's posters and pins and masks. and camper packs and things like that. So we got to be sort of, and then there's Never Hike Alone Blu-rays, which we have, which is the version 2, version 3. So sometimes those are mixed in, so we got to tape some boxes together. But it's going pretty smooth. It's just a matter of in between work, like doing 7 days on a set and then coming home. Like I literally flew in from Portland this morning, and what am I doing? I'm packing camper packs and like waiting for you guys. I'm like, okay, I got 3 hours. Let me see how many camper packs I can do. And
I can do a few of these.
Just chipping off the ice block until there's nothing left.
Yeah. You mentioned using SAG actors and going through the union and doing it the right way. What is the current SAG minimum now? And is Tom Matthews still a member of SAG?
Yes, he is. In fact,
is that a lifetime membership now, or?
No, basically, like you're always there, but if you don't pay your dues, you owe dues. And so, like, if he doesn't work enough during the year, he doesn't earn enough to get his pension. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like he can't get paid. Like he basically gets off the health insurance and he has to go back to private. So that's like the way it would work for an actor. But he had a lot of work that year. He got a lot of work with us. He did 2 or 3 other movies, so he made his quota for that year. Trying to remember what
But he hadn't done anything for, what was it, 15 years before?
Something like that. I mean, he
back?
did a couple of things here and there, but he really wasn't doing it regularly. He was just concentrating on his construction work.
Right.
I'm trying to remember what the minimum is. It's like $212, I think,
Okay.
for a SAG low budget new media, but it's something like that. It's like $212 or $220, and
$212 a day.
A day.
Okay.
But that's for everybody who took minimum.
Right.
Not everybody took minimum.
Right.
So you got bigger, and then on top of that, you're paying pension and health, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I'm paying $212, yeah, I'm paying a base $212, but I'm also paying I think a 9% bump for pension, and then health plan is another 10%. So there's actually so it's not $212, it's like $230, $240.
$230
per day by actor and stuff like that. Background, you don't have to pay as much. And then you can get people to waive, but we're sort of, what we find is it's like, yeah, you can get people to volunteer their time, but those are the first people to flake. Those are the first people that when you need them there, they can't be there because they volunteered and they're not tied to the set. You put money in somebody's pocket, they're going to show up.
I got you.
And so I know they kind of say like, well, everyone has to volunteer and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. It's like, if we're going to do this, like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to find crews that like are going to show up, do it professionally, and we're going to pay them like a vendor. You know what I mean? Like, we're just in charge of how the money is spent. That is the responsibility that we have as the filmmaker.
And how about like a DP? What does a DP ballpark run a day?
On a real feature, like,
Or an indie?
1,000 a day, 1,500, 2,000 a day, but we don't pay that much. Everybody takes a reduced rate on this. So that's the one thing we do get. We don't necessarily pay. Nobody works for free. We do, like I do, Kyle does, Kara does, a few other people do. But for the volunteers that we have are PAs. But all of our other crew take severely reduced rates. Like they do like student film rates is basically how we work it, because what we try to do is, all right, everybody go out and get work. What's everybody working towards? And we're all making our industry rates, and we're getting paid the stuff that makes our rent. It's like, okay, I want to reserve you for this weekend or this week, and you'll at least have some money coming in. But the money that we don't spend on your salary, that's going into the equipment that you're going to have. That's going into, yeah, you might not be getting paid $600 a day as a second AC or $1,000 or $1,500, but we got
You're going to have the best camera in the business.
No, I mean, we have that. I mean, that's some of the stuff that's built in. It's more about like, we'll be able to get good catering. We'll be able to bring in good food. We'll be able to put you up in a nice Airbnb. We'll be able to put you up in a nice hotel. Not saying we're putting people up in the Ritz at like, the presidential suite, but like, we don't have to share beds anymore. We don't have to sleep on the floor of the cabin anymore. We don't have to camp at the campsite anymore. Like, I can get you I can pay for your gas. I can pay for your equipment. I can do a rental fee for this. I can, all that stuff. Or, for the most part, it's like I can put more money into the effects. I can put more money into post. I got to save this money. I can't, like, I had to have a couple conversations with crew members who were like, you raised $100,000. Why would we take, like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, $30,000 of that is going just towards the fulfillments. was like, so I don't have $100,000. I have 50. I have 60, maybe. But like $10,000 of that is for post-production. We're working with this amount of money. And now take your rate, spread that out over 7 days. Tell me what I can afford and can't afford with $50,000. And they go, oh, okay, now I understand. Now I know why you do it. And it's like, yes, because we have to scale it down to what we're actually using to shoot. Like there's a shooting budget, there's a post budget, there's a pre-production budget for like giving VFX and things they need to build. There's costs of just permits and insurance, and there's marketing fees. Like in order to do some of the stuff we do online and to get some of the attention that we do, we have to invest in marketing. So there's a marketing thing. Like we build up a debt as we go. Like by the time we start shooting, or by the time we get the money out of Indiegogo, we've probably spent $5-10 grand already just to get the film. We spent $5 grand to make 50, or we spent 10 grand to make 100,000. You know what I mean? So the investment pays off. It's just not. Indiegogo just doesn't stack up $100,000 and go, here you go, it's yours. Like immediately you just watch it all get thrown into the furnace, and you just cry, and you're like, oh, everybody thinks I have $100,000, and you're like, no. And then you spend more of it, and you're like, shit, like, well, that went out the window. Now I got to make up more of it, and so you do a final call campaign, and you pay it for the rest of you go, wait, post is going to cost that much? Shit, like, okay, I underestimated that. Like,
now I need to do a final call campaign.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Luckily, like we've always managed to do it. Like Never Hike Alone was one successful campaign. Never Hike in the Snow was mostly paid for. We basically just spent our shipping budget to like do some extra stuff on set to build that Mark doll and do the head blow up thing. Because that wasn't the original script. That wasn't in the original thing. It was only when we raised $100,000 that I was like, oh, I got an extra $5-10 grand to play with. What can we do? You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I got all like, we can do a baby Jason. We can do a thing. I started calling up Nora. I'm like, hey, how much can you do? How much can we blow a dude's head off for with a shotgun? Like, does that work? Well, I was like rewriting the end of the script, and she was like, I think I can do that. And so we had to come up with a way to do that. And then realizing that, like, oh, like we actually had to hire somebody else who's a little bit more money than I originally intended to spend. Like a $250 an hour like effects artist isn't going to be able to build this for you. You need the $400 an hour artist, or you need the $400 a day artist, or $500 a day artist. And you're like, oh shit, that's like 2 days in one. And at that point, you got to kind of be like, movie needs it. All right, go. Like I'll make up the cost later. Like we'll pull it out of some other thing. Like I'll have to keep, and that's sort of the line producer side of it. Going, and got to the point literally where like we had to get all these additional artists who were like super professional, like people who work on Halloween and It and like these big ass films. Like they're no joke. I mean, their time is worth something. And it might sound kind of crazy, but if you think about it, like that's me, the fan with the fans' money, going, trust me, I'm going to give this person this money that you've invested, and what you're going to get out of it is something that looks completely professional. You're going to get Mark's head. You're going to get a baby Jason with like proper dentures that are built by the same guy who made Pennywise's teeth. You're getting, it's going into the film. The quality of the film is getting better. The production value is being raised. This is where production value comes from. Did I pay for $250 teeth, or did I pay for $500 teeth? You know what I mean? And the difference between the two is a lot. And it goes into like it being done on time. It being done to a point where you can show it on screen and not be embarrassed. Because say you pay the $250, $1, you give that $250 to an artist, and then they flake on you, or what they give you isn't screen usable. Right. Now you got to pay another $250, or you got to pay the $500 on top of that. You know what I mean? Sometimes that becomes the decision. It's like, do I bite it now or do I go cheap? And constantly, like every time, like you go cheap, it sort of bites you in the ass, and like you kind of like I just stopped doing it. I'm just like, you know what? Like, let's just go find the best. Let's raise the money for it. And so the final call really helped us out with that, because we were able to go out and find those people and then make up that cost for post, because we were like, okay, we also underestimated post for this, because we didn't have a post house lined up at the beginning. We just sort of had a rough estimate of what we did last time. But again, those were based on like extreme, like under the table, friend helping out a friend, like really not charging you the full amount to do this, and sort of running out of those favors. Having a ballpark figure, but then realizing that like there were additional VFX that we didn't count on. Like we didn't think we were going to have to do any digital snow, and there's a couple shots of digital snow. there were things that we had to paint out. There were different types of postings that we had to do that required extra money. Like we did stuff with the head blow up and all those different things. So it was definitely it was a learning lesson sort of in post with some of the more things that we want to do in the future. So doing Never Hike in the Snow set us up to not fail on Never Hike Alone 2, because now we go, all right, not under budget at that time. Now it's going to be this much, and we're going to put that off to the side for it and know that like that's how much the cost is going to be. But also now working with established relationships, be able to negotiate and be like, I know you charged me this last time, but if I gave you this flat rate, would you be cool with that? Like if I just made this a nice round number, like it wasn't like all these gobbledygook little extra things. It's like I just tell you 4 round zeros on top of that number in front of it. Does that cover everything? Can you do that for me? Because you're not working on a 6-week time crunch. You got more months to work on it. Or you have all year to piece it together. Try to work stuff out like that with people. So that way we stretch the dollar as far as it can go and get a nice 85-minute movie out of it, or 90 minutes.
And one last thing I had was, since you brought Tom Matthews back for this, and now, that when that happened a couple years ago, kind of blew everyone's mind. And now a lot of other fan films are trying to do that same thing with, like Laura Park Lincoln and Terry Kaiser coming back for Roseblood. And there are a couple other examples, but like, and if you don't want to answer this, or if this is like too sensitive of a topic, well, I mean, like, what kind of ballpark would you have to pay, like a Tom Matthews or a Laura Park or a Vinny a day?
I mean, it depends on what their day rate is. They have day rates. They're real actors. They work and they have agents. Those agents need to make money. So it gets up there. I mean, it can be high hundreds. It could be thousands. It depends on how many days they're on set. It depends on what type of package you work out with them. I've heard some actors have donated their money back into the film. I've had actors waive fees. I've had Tom cut me a deal on a couple of things, like when we really needed it. And so, you kind of got to be real careful with that stuff. You know what I mean? Like people are worth what they're worth, and they're going to, that's what you need to pay them. And so we have to work that in, but I also try to work that into sort of like, well, if that person's going to be that much and that sort of thing, like, then we need to raise this much money to cover them because we need them on set for this many days. And so it just comes down to like figuring out what the true cost is. And again, like, don't tell an alumni that you want them in your picture, and then all of a sudden when it comes time to pay them, you come up short. That's what you don't want to do. And I think that, like, when you go after an alumni, sort of like, because that was sort of, Cecil's thing with Dylan's New Nightmares. He really wanted to approach Miko about it. It was one of the things that he approached me about, was sort of like bridging that gap. And, Cecil, basically said, like, I feel that your presence there sort of could be sort of like, look, I got the guy who sort of put fan films back on the map as something that could be done by other than Ari Shankar. You know what I mean? Like with somebody like who nobody knew before that day, all of a sudden came out of nowhere with a fan film about something that was actually worth watching. And that when we got to sit down with Miko and say, like, we don't want to put you in this film because you're Miko Hughes and we just want to sell tickets. You need to be in this film because it's the story that's built for you. This is your story this is an avenue for you as an actor to pursue this character and bring them back to life in a really interesting way. That was my message to Tom. That was my message to Vinny. That was my message to Miko. And saying that, like, I'm here because I've read this script and I believe in it and I think this would be cool. As a fan who's not even like a huge Nightmare fan, like, I'm saying this is cool. This is like the way you should do it. I mean, I am a big Nightmare fan. I'm just not as big as Cecil, and I can't tell you all the things, but it took me having to go back and rewatch New Nightmare to have an appreciation for it and kind of seeing the story play out. So I think sometimes, again, like, is the alumni in there to serve a purpose, or is the alumni there just to be an alumni? Just to, for everyone to have a big, ass kissing session to say, like, we worked with an alumni on set. Because, again, it comes down, again, is it fun? Is it just for fun? Then just have fun and play that card. But if you're going to come back and you're going to play with our heroes. Like, don't fuck it up.
Mm.
Don't
Oh,
fuck
no.
it up.
Hey,
That's our line. Wait a minute.
Don't, you know, you gotta. A lot of these things are sensitive subjects. You think, like, trust me, I had a version of the original version of Never Hike Alone had the ambulance, the driver dying. And so when I talked to Tom about coming back and playing this role, I was like, you don't have to be Tom. Like, I'm not going to put that on you. Like, just be Tom Matthews coming in doing an acting role, and people will be like, hey, that's the same guy. He's like, nah, man, if you got me, use me. I'm Tommy. And you can't kill Tommy. The fans will kill you. And I went, I know. Now we got to rewrite my ending. I'm like, oh,
Nice.
like, put me, like, it was like, you know, one good thing led to another. Again, what we're talking about, it's like, yeah, you get the guy you want in the film, but now you got to change the ending that you've had for the last year. Ending that you really like and everyone's going to love because everyone dies. You know what I mean? It's like, they don't make it out. Yeah. Like, bad guy wins. But it forced me to rewrite the ending, but forcing me to rewrite the opening, open up this whole new chapter.
Yep.
And that's what it's about. It's really about telling a good story. It's like, tell us a good story. That's what we all want. We want a story that makes sense. We don't want it to be convoluted, and we want it to feel like it's not sacrilegious. And I just think that, like, genre fans get really sensitive. You know, when things become sacrilegious to a fan base, everyone can feel it. It, like, almost fills the air of the room. You know, when they blew up Jason and Jason Goes to Hell, I mean, I can still feel that feeling of, like, there when, you know, when in Halloween 2018, when what's his face puts on when Dr. Sartain puts on Michael's mask, I'm like, sacrilegious. Can't deal with this. No, stop it. Like, don't do this. Like, whose idea was this? And it was like, things like that. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be extra sensitive, or at least when you know you do it, just acknowledge that, yeah, I knew this was going to drive everyone nuts, but I did it because it's crazy. Sort of like Jason Rising. Like, Pamela doesn't come back from the grave. She never comes back from the grave. What are you guys doing? You know what I mean? But it's like, no, we love it. That's what we're going for. It's wacky. And we're like, all right, cool. Then it is what it is. But, like, when you see the way they've executed it, and you see what motivates her to come back, and you see how it happens and sort of how they're drawn back together, it's sort of like, why didn't they do it this way? This really makes sense. Like, you can see like, you could see an alternate universe where this is how they told the story, and it could work this way. Like, if Friday the 13th was directed by Sam Raimi, like, this is maybe how it would have been done. Like, it's kind of cool in that way. So I know I'm really kind of hyping it up, but I mean, it's different. I think that, like, fans that want to see something different that doesn't feel contrived, like, this is the film for them, where they're going to see something very fresh, but also set in the final chapter world. So it's kind of like the best of both things.
Nice. Colonel, do you have one final question before we let Vincent go?
Not necessarily a question, more of a statement. Again, I know this is your second time with us. I appreciate it. Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Shit, it has been. I appreciate you coming on every time. It's a lot of fun. Like, I can listen to you talk for days. Again, I'm just super hyped for Never Hike Alone 2. I love your film. Like, it's a great way for us fans to kind of give the middle finger to Sean Cunningham, say, fuck you, we're going to do it if you're not. And
I wouldn't hold the middle finger too high, only because he's the one who could sue us. So we should just be like, thanks, Sean. You just
wave at him when he drives by, just kind of go,
yeah,
just
right.
A little bit. But no, like I say, I appreciate it. And you're right. I think the Friday 13th community, we need to get together for something. Because let's see, the game brought fresh air to it for a little bit. Unfortunately, lawsuits eventually going to kill that. That's eventually going to go away, and all we have are these fan films. Because who knows when we'll see another Friday the 13th film. And just like I said, when you put it out there, just let me know how much it's going to cost to get Alana's Lounge flyer stapled onto the telephone pole. Just a nice little Easter egg you plug in there.
I'm writing this down. This is going into the movie. Wait, where's my pen? Hold on a second. I got to get this idea, because there's actually a thing where we have a place where this can go. Like, I already have the set where this goes. Like, oh my god.
See, I was going to suggest that the bar could be called Dead Fucks too. That hit my mind.
Oh.
You know what? No, what we'll do is we'll have a band flyer, and one of the bands will be Jimmy and the Dead Fucks.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
Jimmy and the Dead
great.
Fucks. Yep.
That's
Yep.
fantastic.
Lounge Friday night, 10 p.m.
Yep. At Lana's Lounge.
Dude, man, that is sweet.
And then the tagline for Lana's Lounge will be "It's showtime."
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh, man.
This is,
All right.
This is how you make a fan film. Here we go.
I think we redeemed ourselves from earlier when we were just saying, trying to think of the initial name there. Look at this. This is good.
And now I have
Ziggy,
two
do you have a
awesome,
final question?
two awesome Easter eggs. One on the wall.
No, I don't have a question. I'll say the same thing, man. I think, Vincent, you are a rising star with what you're doing here and what you're giving to the horror community. And as an independent filmmaker, man, I see it. You're heading to that. You're going to break through. And we're just happy you're here doing this now. And I hope you can keep doing them before you become too huge a fucking star and you don't have to do these anymore like this. But, man.
I mean, I don't know where this is all going to go. I'm really just sort of like, I'm taking it as like, if this is all I got, like, then cool. You know what I mean? Like, then I got to do this. This will be a part of the franchise I always wanted to be a part of. I moved out to Los Angeles to work on a Friday the 13th film, and life took that opportunity away from me. So I created it for myself. And so Never Hike Alone hasn't been prosperous enough for somebody to say, let's give that kid a chance on the next Blumhouse film. But, you know, I've given myself an opportunity to realize that, like, I don't need anyone. I can make my own films now. I have to write for my budgets, like, because all my ideas are goddamn $80 million movies. I mean, the next script I have, it opens up in the Arctic. I mean, I'm like, Vin. I'm like, but the visuals, you know? It's like, maybe I'll get good enough where we can just go shoot it on a green screen and get a boat somewhere. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But it's just, it you know, for me, I figured out how to, I taught myself how to fish. So I don't need to depend on Hollywood to give me any chances. Like, it might take me a little longer to get my movies done. It might not be at the budgets I want. I might not be able to make the big undead Western that I've always wanted to make. But you know what? I might be able to come up with a cool story about a certain house that I find somewhere in some podunk town and make a really cool film there. And people will be like, "Hey, the Never Hike Alone guy, yeah, I'll toss him $20 to crowdfund his, you know, $250,000 feature that he's shooting in, you know, Boise." And out of that, I'll make a cool film. I'll take that to film festivals. I'll happily come on a convention circuit. I'll happily go to Telluride and Film Quest and Genre Blast, and, you know, maybe make it out to a Mad Monster one of these days. Get to Salem and all these different places where, you know, we have the opportunity to go meet other filmmakers and get bigger and better, and, you know, meet the new crop of filmmakers and hopefully inspire them. And, you know, if I never get to walk the red carpet in Hollywood, fuck it. These people are assholes anyway.
I don't, maybe, man, but I just think somebody gave you the budget and, you know, lifted the restrictions on things. That, yeah, man, go do it. I think you would deliver. I think it would be, you know, I think you would, the mass appeal to it all. You know,
I think so too.
Yeah.
I don't think that Hollywood would ever want to take that risk, because Hollywood's not a town about risk. It's a town about guarantees. You know, that's why we have 5,000 Marvel movies, because they sell tickets. And that's all they care about. And honestly, like, I think a broader.
Lorena says, now I want to see that Undead Western, Shades of Joe Lansdale.
Yeah, it's called 86th.
86.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it was a fun tale. It needs a rewrite. I've become a much better writer since then, but there's a lot of cool action sequences, but it's definitely like $100 million movie, because there are huge sequences. There's bullfighting, like all this stuff. It goes down into Mexico. It's really cool.
Nice.
And but yeah, with you know, it's just, I'm just, writing's on the wall, man. Like, I have to do something to do something else. And, you know, Friday the 13th isn't going to be lifted from the shackles of its lawsuit anytime soon. And so, you know, fans have risen to the occasion, and it's kind of cool to see all these fans kind of pitching in and doing their own thing and building their own, you know, franchises and telling their own stories. I mean, I honestly think that Tom McLaughlin should say fuck it and crowdfund his movie.
Oh,
I know other filmmakers that are now starting to kind of look over at what we've been doing and say, maybe I shouldn't wait why should I wait? Why shouldn't I just do it now? Why don't I just cut the studios out? And the studios aren't really doing anything to like encourage Sean and Victor to settle. They're all just being like, well, if you don't want to settle, then we'll just go make more Halloweens and Nightmares and everything else. Like, we're not hurting for money. We don't need Friday the 13th to make us money. You know what I mean? So I think after the fact, if I actually had a real prediction of how this would really go, would be that we'd all make these movies, and at some point when the rights do come unhinged in some way, shape, or form, that somebody's going to buy all the rights to these films and put them on a disc, you know, and make them official Friday the 13th entries and do an anthology disc or something, or a box set, or, you know, I think it would be worth it. It's a cool, I mean, what other fan base has this right now other than Star Wars and Star Trek?
Yeah.
None.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah, and that's like I said, it's a great thing where if they do buy up the rights to those fan films. I mean, hell, you said it yourself earlier tonight. DC has the perfect blueprint for it. Multi-universe, boom, there you go. Just fill it all in,
Chucky's
make
doing
it money. Yeah, Chucky.
Yep.
I mean, you got a Child's Play movie. They're going to do a sequel. It has nothing to do with the original story, other than the fact that like it's a kid, and he has a mom that bought him a doll. And then you have the original series still. I mean, it's like in its like fifth iteration of changing the lore. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
There's a adult female Chucky right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, but which is cool because it's played by Fiona Dourif, and sort of that lineage and bringing that in. So that's really cool. But it's, again, the fans are the ones who win. And so do the studios, because the fans are going to support this stuff. And now those actors and those filmmakers, they're going to engage. There's going to be something that carries that franchise forward. And Friday the 13th doesn't have that right now. But what it has is the fans picking up the torch and sort of creating this. I think in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, they're going to look back at this time between 2017 and, you know, probably 25, who knows, before this rights thing is settled. And we all go, look at this. Like, there were 50 fan films that got made, and like half of them were kind of decent. Like, you can watch some of these, you know what I mean? And, you know, original tales, and like even the ones that are more low budget, like there's one, I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was shot in South Africa, and it doesn't have the greatest production value, like as far as like the way the film looks, but the storytelling is really, really good. I think it's called Death Curse. Is that Friday the 13th Death Curse? It's the one that everybody's got South African accents. And Auntie Ginny.
Yep.
I think that was one. That was pretty good. They did the fighting. In fact, I recognized a few Never Hike Alone shots in there, and a few. And I think he has a yellow axe, and so I'm kind of like, are these?
Wait a minute.
I'm like, is this a nod? I'm like, cool. It's like semi-ghost Jason. It's like, I don't know. Sometimes it's kind of cool to see it influence other people, and like, man, this is like fan film inception. The fan film of a fan film. In fact, somebody did a fan film. It's called The Final Hike. I was like, somebody fan filmed me. I was like, holy shit.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
It is. It's like breaking the fourth wall somehow, man. What the hell's going on?
But I think, I mean, it's cool. I mean, the fan base is invigorated. People are dressing up like Jason, running out the woods with their friends with cameras and having fun. So, hey, you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Well, man, we greatly appreciate you coming by again and doing this. We thought this was a cool way to kind of give back to our members. We will release this here in a week or so also for the public.
Yeah. Cool.
But shit, you should be ready to go for the con circuit now, man. This should piece of cake after this.
I know. Now it's just going to be sitting back, hitting play, doing the Q&As afterwards, and doing a lot of questions. I mean, my favorite thing is sitting at the booth. Sitting at the booth, people coming up, talking about Friday, talking about the series, asking questions. I love it when people haven't seen the film before. They buy it, they watch it that night in their room, and they come back down the next day. They're like, "Oh my god! Like, how'd you get Tom? It's the first. How'd you get Tom? How'd you get Tom?"
Right.
Always the first question. Well, I mean, you know, and then go into the. It's funny. It's like now I start to see the other people on the cons a lot too. You know, I realize like, oh, everyone's got their stories sort of like backlogged. It's like, okay, let me go to this story. All right, the story behind this one. Let me repeat this one. And they tell the same story all the time, but when somebody who's never heard it before, you owe it to them to tell them the story just like you told it the first time. And it's one thing that I've definitely absorbed from the people I see, because I can't imagine how many times Kane Hodder has told the same story, how many times CJ has told the same story, or Dee Wallace, or, you know, Ron Sloan, you know, carrying that head for 30 years. to convention to convention, and just as excited to meet a fan now as he did 10 years ago. And that's inspirational. And especially when you see the kids, kids who do nothing but watch YouTube all day. They're out at the restaurant, their parents just slam the iPad in their face and they're bringing up Never Hike Alone. And then they see me at a convention and they start like flipping out. And I'm like, wait, what? But then remembering, like, as a kid, like, I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference either. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference between what I thought was awesome and, the professional actor that's down the way. Like, I just liked what I liked. And so it's kind of a cool feeling to know that, like, some kid's going to tie his horror or her horror genesis of, like, getting into it through Never Hike Alone, because and their parents come and take us like, oh, they didn't like horror movies and they saw Never Hike Alone and they want to know about horror movies. So now we're showing them all the horror movies. I'm like, yeah, they're going to be messed up just like us. Great.
While you're in Kansas City, you might run into a filmmaker known as Jill Six or Jeff Hargazian. She directed a film, came out earlier this year called The Stylist, and she did that in Kansas City.
No, okay, I know who that is. Yeah, no, that's great.
You might bump into her. So I don't know if she's booked at Crypticon, but I've seen her talking about it on social media a little bit about it coming up. So
yeah, it's probably
she's going to go.
I mean, it's where everybody goes to hang out. The filmmakers will be there. There's a film fest there, so I'm sure she'll have friends with film festivals. She might have new films in there too. So definitely want to meet her. She did a great job with that.
Oh, that was a great film. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I think we're good here. This is one of the longer live videos we've ever done.
Every time I'm on.
Yeah, man. It's all right, though.
Oh, we broke the 2.5-hour record of the last one, though.
Oh, nice.
The funny thing is, Vincent, I have to get up for work at 5 a.m. Eastern time to go to the day job. Mm-hmm. As soon as hey, we have Vincent coming on, I was like, let me schedule the next day off because there's no way I'm going to be able to get into
my bad.
Sense of sleep. So no, thank you. Extended my 4th of July weekend. I appreciate it.
All right.
Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah, enjoy that. You guys all have good fourths. Nobody lost.
I got all digits, man. So it's good.
Yeah, well, everybody check in. All right, we're good to go.
But yeah, thanks again for joining us, and best of luck on Jason Rising, on Dylan's New Nightmare, on I think you said Judy. Is that another project you were working on?
Renee, who we did Spirit of Haddonfield with, he did the tent, and so we all kind of collaborated around this project, Judy. We're going to finish shooting that at the end of August, or no, at the end of July, and then try to finish it up in August in post. But that's going to be a cool one. Original tale, produce, co-write, and I also act in it. And I got a sweet mustache. I also I also act in Jason Rising, and I have a sweet mustache in that too.
Nice.
I hope it's kind of porn stashy.
I think if you guys have seen our Instagram, definitely. I showed it. We called it Officer Playboy. So I got the porn stash. The other one's a little bit more like straight lace stash. But yeah, while we're here, everybody make sure to check out youtube.com/WompStompFilms. WOMPSTOMPFILMS. Keep an eye out on our social media pages. Definitely watch the film, share them around with your friends and family. Keep an eye out for Jason Rising on August 13th. Dylan's New Nightmare is fundraising right now. Mm-hmm. Judy might do a fundraise for post-production. We'll see about that. But also keep an eye out for another fan film that I've been sort of kind of coaching from the side. It's called Casey Jones Livewire. So it's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan film, but it's all about Casey Jones. And I have some good friends that are in that film that are doing a really great job with that. And great actresses. It's more focused on Casey and April's story. So it's pretty cool. They have some really fun surprises. They are backed, but you can contact them and find them and kind of go check their out. So they have some teasers up. It's pretty cool.
Okay. And what was the email again to possibly get Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow Blu-rays and scripts?
Yep. WompStompFilms@gmail.com. We have Never Hike in the Snow Blu-rays. We have Never Hike Alone Blu-rays. So we have version 2 and version 3. We have scripts, Never Hike Alone posters, Never Hike in the Snow posters. I can always order extra of that stuff. So if somebody wants to order something, they want to see what's in our lot, just ask. I have a little email I can send you to kind of the instructions of like, pick out what you want. We'll send you a PayPal invoice. Mm-hmm. And then just for clarification, if you buy a Blu-ray, it doesn't mean that I'm sending out the Blu-ray right away. You're joining the list of the pre-orders. So basically you're getting behind the Indiegogo backers while there's still space, and that space is shrinking. So
you're getting in that stack of labels that you have to print off when Kyle comes
exactly.
over.
You're getting into the stack. And so we got through all of the first campaign, domestic. I'm working through domestic in the second campaign while picking off some of the international shipments on the first campaign. Only because we just ship domestic so much faster, and I want to get the bulk out so I can focus on the slow orders at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sort of kind of peppering those in, and then I'm going to start mixing the PayPals in pretty soon. So people who PayPal'd us like a year ago are going to start getting theirs. And the people who did it 2 weeks ago will probably be end of the month, if not early August.
Nice.
And then we should wrap out everything early August, and then I'm going to take a break, and then we'll get ready to launch Never Hike Alone 2, and we'll do the press releases and get everything prepped for that.
Oh, we're coming for that one, baby.
Yes.
DCS.
Yeah, and I'll come back again. We'll do another 5 hours.
Yep.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Done.
Members, thank you for joining us. One last special time for thank you to Chris, Lorena, Christy, Luke, Tyrone, Angelo, Peter, S. Michael, and Dave. And again, one last thank you to Vincent for coming on and joining us again. We will see you on down the road. Colonel, you want to do your sign-off?
Oh, okay. I didn't listen to my advice last week. So the brain COVID's almost over, so I need to find a new sign-off. So thanks for joining us. Don't get sick. Wash your dick. And this is the part you're going to laugh, Vincent. I need to send you this video link so you understand this joke. Don't smell like a Scuba Steve. Use Summer's Eve. Dude, you'll love it. It's a Summer's Eve commercial mixed in from Friday the 13th Part 2. That's like my best video ever made. I'll have to send that to you.
I will have to say,
I'll shoot you a link.
yes.
This might be another Easter egg for the deodorant that we use, Summer's Eve.
Full credit to the
Summer's
Colonel.
Eve for your Summer's Beef.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Fucking A.
What were you saying, Ziggy?
Well, actually, I've turned up some actual footage of the Colonel last Monday. But we're glad to see
It happens.
he recovered. It happens. Exactly.
For Vincent, for Zigzag, for the Colonel, this is Red Crank saying DCS out. We will catch you next week for a new Monday Maniac. Stay tuned, folks. Woo!
Glass.